The Demon King stood frozen as reality crushed him. The black flames he once worshipped as absolute power failed to even scorch the heroes before him. His scales, hardened by years of cultivation, were pierced effortlessly by the hero's blade now buried in his heart. Nothing made sense. He had done everything right. He graduated top of the Demon King Academy. He memorized the Demon King standard, followed every rule without deviation. He built the tower exactly as instructed. He kidnapped royalty as tradition demanded. He played the mastermind, scattered clues, and patiently nurtured heroes instead of killing them early. The standard taught that heroes were livestock. The stronger they grew, the richer the harvest. And yet he lay bleeding in the dirt. The hero explained it plainly. Kidnapping royalty was not a crime, but a signal. Towers were invitations. Weak monsters trained heroes. Delayed executions allowed them to grow. Even sparing their lives had only made them stronger. His tower was not a fortress of domination. It was a training ground, a farming zone. The heroes laughed, thanking him for raising their levels and providing excellent loot. Even fallen heroes were dismissed as insignificant sacrifices for fame. The mockery burned deeper than death itself. In rage, the Demon King tried to unleash his final power, but his head was severed before it could form. As his consciousness faded, he sacrificed everything to trigger one last explosion, swallowing the battlefield whole. Then darkness. A voice called his name. Deas opened his eyes to applause. He stood in the Demon King Academy, 15 years in the past, holding his graduation badge. The glowing laws of the Demon King standard appeared before him once more. This time he understood. When asked to swear the oath, Deas refused. He denounced the standard as trash, a joke designed to enslave demon kings and feed heroes. His words stunned the academy. In that moment, the greatest genius became something far more dangerous. The madman of the century, Archduke Arcane Blair, was the first to lose his damn mind, slamming his hand down like he was trying to break the table in half, and roaring about immediate execution for what he deemed an unspeakable affront to their sacred standards. The sheer rage in his voice reverberated through the hall, making everyone feel like they were caught in a damn earthquake. But hold up, he paused, reconsidering the madness. Piers, that kid, had always been a shining star, displaying insane discipline, jaw-dropping talent, and academic performance that was practically flawless. Offing him on the spot, that would be an absolute waste. So the Archduke, with a flicker of mercy, decided to throw one last bone. The ultimatum was crystal clear. Take back the outburst and apologize to the entire demon realm, or be shipped off to the hellhole known as the Aran region. As soon as Aran slipped from the Archduke's lips, the hall erupted into a frenzy of hushed gasps and frantic whispers. Aran was notorious, treated like a graveyard for demon kings, a dimension where dozens met their doom every single year. People were losing their minds over why someone who had committed such a colossal screw-up was even being offered a second chance. In their eyes, a measly apology could never wipe the slate clean for such blasphemy. The Archduke reminded them all that Aran was the most hostile place in existence, a void that had devoured countless demon kings without leaving even a whisper behind. Before anyone could even finish their shocked murmurs, Piers shot back with an icy determination that left everyone slack-jawed. He demanded that assignment like it was a free meal, stating he would head there immediately. The Archduke was left speechless, his composure crumbling faster than a cookie in a toddler's hands. The idea that Piers planned to use Aran to expose their precious standards as a total joke was beyond anything he could fathom. His patience evaporated like a puddle in the scorching sun. Orders boomed through the hall as he commanded Piers' immediate transfer to Aran. Every privilege usually granted to top-tier demon kings was stripped away like a bad paint job. No minions to follow him, no prep time, nothing. The portal flared open, and the command was clear. He was banned from returning until he conquered that hellhole. Piers tumbled through the portal, fully aware that this was the inevitable outcome of the chaos he had unleashed. As he fell, reality hit him hard. Aran was the haunt of the heroes who had taken him down in his last life. He remembered choosing Aran back then, driven by arrogance and the belief that the strongest should always tackle the toughest challenges. That pride had lured him straight into a deadly trap. Those heroes had exploited his blind loyalty to the standards and obliterated him. But this time, hell no. As he spread his wings and landed safely in the icy grip of the Irgust Mountains on the northern continent, he welcomed the bitter cold. This new life would not mirror the last. He swore to twist those damn standards to his advantage, instead of letting them chew him up again. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Chaos was brewing on the morning of the graduation ceremony. Gordon Derrick was preparing with the kind of meticulous effort that would make a drill sergeant proud, polishing every detail to ensure he shone as the Academy's top graduate. In the demon world, the highest-ranking demon was assigned to serve the highest-ranking demon king, and that position sparked envy hotter than a dragon's breath among the other graduates, especially the ones who ranked second and third. They were kicking themselves for not pushing harder to serve Lord Piers. Gordon saw all demon kings as extraordinary, but Piers, oh, he was something else entirely, a once-in-a-millennium phenomenon, a descendant of demonic dragons destined to carve his name into history. Graduating in the same year as him felt like winning the lottery, like a blessing bestowed upon him. His imagination soared to wild visions of conquering dimensions, side by side, statues immortalizing them as king and loyal assistant. But then, in a heart-stopping moment, Piers publicly dismissed the sacred standards, and that memory crashed into Gordon like a freight train. His idealized image shattered into a million pieces. He could barely process that the figure he had idolized had tossed the sacred teachings aside like yesterday's trash. In the far-flung, icy embrace of the Irgust Mountains, Gordon slogged through the relentless snow, burdened by bags that felt like they were filled with lead. Confusion and despair twisted his features into a mask of utter disbelief. How in the hell had everything spiraled out of control so damn fast? When Piers finally caught sight of him, his expression morphed into one of sheer astonishment. He'd been told no demon would tag along, yet here was Gordon, the very embodiment of chaos itself, crashing into his life. Gordon's composure shattered like glass underfoot. He exploded with questions. Why the hell had Piers stirred up this monumental mess? Why had he dared to insult the sacred standards? And why the hell were they both marooned in the most treacherous region on the planet? Piers, cool as a cucumber, shrugged off the questions, pretending to be blissfully unaware of the catastrophe they were entangled in. Oh, the audacity. This only stoked the fire of Gordon's frustration. He reminded Piers of that one explosive moment that had condemned them both to this icy purgatory. Piers attempted to crack a joke, but Gordon had zero patience for humor when panic was clawing at his insides. As Piers watched Gordon unravel, a vivid image of the Gordon he once knew flashed in his mind, the confident warrior, ready to take on the world, especially Aaron. But now, fear had taken the wheel, and revealing the truth about their time-traveling escapades would only throw gasoline on this already raging inferno. So Piers zipped his lips. After what felt like an eternity of chaos, Gordon managed to rein in his emotions, apologizing with a grudging acknowledgement of his duty. Despite the nagging doubts still swirling in his head, he fell back on the teachings he clung to, insisting that the first rule was to build a damn tower. But not just any tower, this one had to be in a visible, accessible location, not hidden away in a wasteland teeming with monsters. The mountains surrounding them were crawling with beasts, almost impossible for mere mortals to navigate. He argued that the location was a blatant violation of every principle of the standards, and they needed to skedaddle. Piers flat-out rejected that idea. Like a stubborn mule, he declared that the tower would rise right here, right now, and not a damn inch elsewhere. He pulled out the legendary tower seed and thrust it into the frozen earth. It needed Demon King blood to awaken, and Gordon's panic skyrocketed. He accused Piers of trampling their traditions, but Piers responded with an icy finality. He had never pledged allegiance to those standards. Gordon recoiled as if Piers had just slapped him in the face. That rejection of their doctrine hit him like a ton of bricks. Piers understood the reaction all too well. For demons, the standards were as ingrained as breathing. To reject them felt as unnatural as flying without wings, unless, of course, you had lived through something truly hellish. Like death itself, he raised his hand, sliced it open, and let his blood drip onto the seed. "Listen up, Gordon," he commanded. "The standards are utterly worthless, especially here in Aaron." As the seed absorbed the blood, it erupted in a dazzling red flare, conjuring a magic circle. The tower was identifying its new master. Piers does of the Black Flame demonic dragon clan. Piers unleashed a revelation that shook the very core of their beliefs. Aaron was swarming with heroes because they had figured out how to manipulate towers, wielding the Demon King standards like weapons against demons. That was why Demon Kings met their doom in this wretched region over and over again. When the tower fully materialized, rising majestically from the snow like a dark, brooding monument, Gordon stared at it in utter disbelief. Piers merely remarked that the standards should be renamed, since they now served humans far better than any demon ever could. The interior was nothing short of a barren wasteland. As they stepped inside, the first floor greeted them with cold stone and eerie silence. Gordon examined the emptiness with a growing sense of dread. A proper tower should be bursting with chambers, traps and creatures, yet this one felt like a ghost town, stripped of every luxury a demon king should have. Each level they climbed felt just as hollow. By the time they reached the 5th floor, the supposed king's chamber was as desolate as the rest. Gordon begrudgingly accepted that the tower's construction was beyond salvaging, but insisted that the next rule of the standards still had to be upheld. The second requirement demanded the kidnapping of a prince or princess, preferably someone close to the throne, to siphon the strongest emotional energy. He asked for permission to offer his 2 cents, and Piers, with a nod, granted it. Gordon unfurled a map and pointed to the kingdom of Overrun, the nearest realm to the Irgust Mountains. In his opinion, snatching the highest-ranking princess, there would send shockwaves of fear and grief rippling across the nation, fueling their growth. But Piers cut him off before he could get any further. He was on board with the kidnapping idea, but he had already zeroed in on his target. Gordon's excitement soared at the thought of joining the mission, until Piers ordered him to stay behind and guard the tower. Gordon took this as a sign that his king had returned to his senses, reassuring himself that the previous bizarre behavior was merely the stress of graduation. His optimism shattered like glass when he learned who Piers had set his sights on. Instead of the noble princess of Overrun, Piers had chosen Hilderin, the kingdom at the absolute farthest point from the tower. And instead of a high-ranking royal, he was gunning for the 13th princess, a girl with practically no influence and about as much presence at court as a shadow. With a fierce determination, Piers launched himself southward, traversing vast lands until he reached a distant castle. He slipped through a window and invaded the princess's private chamber without so much as a second thought. The mission felt oddly familiar, yet this time he was driven by a purpose that defied every rule the demon world held sacred. Meanwhile, back at the tower, Gordon's heart raced as panic set in. His king had opted for the least strategic option imaginable, the complete antithesis of everything the standards demanded. Inside the princess's room, she blinked at Piers in bewilderment, unsure of who or what had just crashed into her quiet existence. Piers wasted no time, declaring his identity and intent with unwavering confidence. Instead of the terror he expected, the girl responded with a soft, almost amused laugh, a reaction that stood in stark contrast to the gravity of the moment. What the hell was going on? Instead of cowering in fear, the princess stood tall, locking eyes with Piers like she was sizing up a damn demon king. Really, the audacity of it all caught him completely off guard. Was she for real, or did she think demon kings were just some kind of joke? But he puffed up with confidence, sure of his own badassery. What he didn't see coming was her casual acceptance, as if handing herself over to him was just another Tuesday. That coolness, it was like a chill running down his spine. He grilled her about her motives, but she just shrugged and said she'd always suspected something wild like this could happen to a princess. He warned her not to pull any sneaky moves, insisting he wouldn't give her a chance to trap him, especially when he felt like he was walking a tightrope over a pit of lava. She simply pointed out the obvious. How could she have plotted anything when she didn't even know he'd show up that day? Her logic was solid, yet there was something nagging at him, like a fly buzzing in his ear. Before he could overthink it, she stretched out her hand and beckoned him to leave. He took her hand, and they soared straight back to the tower nestled deep within the Irgust Mountains. The moment they landed, Gordon was there, practically vibrating with tension. Piers ordered him to put the princess on the 4th floor, instead of tossing her in the dungeon. Her lack of resistance, he claimed, earned her a smidgen of leniency. Gordon nodded, but then asked to discuss something urgent. Meanwhile, the princess sat all alone on the cold, bare floor of the 4th level, mumbling to herself about how she had genuinely been kidnapped. Her gaze drifted around the empty room. No blankets, no pillows, no servants, and none of the lush gardens or comforts she had been spoiled with. Still, a tiny smile crept onto her lips as she decided that maybe, just maybe, this situation wasn't the worst thing ever. At the same time, Gordon was handing his master a shiny invitation from the Tower of Monsters. It was a welcome celebration for the newly crowned Demon King. Piers scoffed, brushing it off as a pathetic attempt to intimidate him, a show of power. Typically, Demon Kings were too arrogant to cooperate, but the grim situation with Eren had forced them to play nice. Yet he figured he'd attend. He had previously dismissed them as insignificant, but now the stakes were too high to ignore. The Tower of Monsters loomed out of a thick forest, and there Piers faced Draxon, the Demon King, who had been ruling the roost for 70 long years. Draxon's first reaction was dripping with contempt. He sized up Piers like he was nothing but a speck of dirt, making it clear he disapproved of how this newcomer had brushed aside tradition. Piers shot back with a cool challenge, urging him to cut the crap and get to the point. Soon enough, the reason for their meeting came to light. Draxon revealed that Archduke Arcane had tasked him with keeping tabs on Piers. Piers didn't hold back, tossing an unfiltered insult right back at the Archduke, mocking how even exile to Erin hadn't managed to cool him down. The jab sent Draxon into a rage, and he tried to humiliate Piers with a degrading command. But Piers stood his ground. Instead, he questioned whether Draxon truly understood why he was there. Draxon claimed Piers had violated sacred traditions. Piers cut him off, pointing out that those traditions forbade demon kings from offing each other, then shattered the floor beneath his heel with a single, thunderous strike. The display left Draxon in stunned silence, realizing far too late that he had seriously misjudged his guest. He attempted to salvage the complete train wreck of a situation by dragging up the Archduke's orders yet again, orders that were tangled up in the wild drama of a kidnapped princess and a report due in. Like a month, Piers shot back, casually mentioning that he had already snagged himself a princess, and with a wicked grin, he added that she was just his type. Draxon was left utterly baffled, as Piers strutted out of the tower like he owned the damn place. Back in his own tower, Gordon was practically bouncing off the walls, praising Piers' display of pure, unfiltered strength, but Piers waved it off like it was nothing. He was dead set on the idea that Draxon wouldn't dare escalate things now, but he warned Gordon to keep his eyes peeled. He told him to check on the princess and see how they could turn her into a real asset. Deep down, though, he was sweating bullets about the other demon kings. If they decided to join forces, they could become a colossal threat. Mocking tradition had consequences heavier than he had ever imagined. But you know what? He'd make that choice 1,000 times over. Better to face death than bow down to those he loathed. He had plans to rebuild everything from the ground up and thought, hell, a measly amount of energy for snatching a low-ranking princess was a steal. But then everything came crashing down when he opened his system panel, and his jaw dropped at the sight of over 13,000 points. 13,000, what the hell? Before he could wrap his head around it, a video message pinged in from the Tower of Monsters. Draxon appeared, suddenly all sunshine and rainbows, congratulating him and offering a gift. He claimed to admire Piers' accomplishments in Erin, and hinted that mocking tradition might have had a hidden agenda. The sudden switch in vibe was, frankly, unsettling. Before Piers could even begin to decode that twisted message, Gordon burst in, ghostly pale and shaking like a leaf, shouting that something was seriously wrong on the 4th floor. Piers dashed over and stopped dead in his tracks. The once barren room had morphed into a vibrant living garden. Flowers bloomed, butterflies flitted about, and a whole damn ecosystem thrived inside the tower. Elemental spirits swirled around the princess, who stood amidst them like she was the queen of the world. Only a master of all 4 elements could pull off something this spectacular, and there was only one spirit elementalist of that caliber on the entire continent. In a flash, he realized she was not the 13th princess. She confirmed his suspicion with a sly smile. Her real name was Hilderin, the first princess of the kingdom that was now ready to explode in rage. Within hours, news of her kidnapping rippled through the royal halls like wildfire. The king blew a gasket, vowing revenge on the demon king who had dared to touch his precious daughter, rallying the mightiest heroes and the entire army to march for her glorious return. What a hell of a mess this had turned into. The princess reappeared, a shimmering specter of royalty, to remind Piers of that burning question she had tossed his way earlier. Could he truly handle her? And oh boy, did she confirm that this was the heart of the matter. Piers, ever the astute observer, made it crystal clear that her enchanting appearance was no trickery to him. He had heard tales of a genius elemental witch, overflowing with mana like a damn volcano. And that kind of power, you just can't overlook it. What really sparked his curiosity, though, was how the hell she managed to bottle up that overwhelming presence like it with some sort of magical soda. In a dramatic flourish, the princess revealed a stunning ring adorning her finger, claiming it was a royal heirloom with the incredible ability to cloak her magical energy. She then shot him a piercing gaze and asked, "So, are you planning to send me back now that you've seen the real me?" Piers scoffed at the mere thought. Sending a princess back, that would turn him into the kingdom's biggest joke, strip him of his fearsome reputation, and completely ruin his chances of harvesting delicious demonic energy from everyone's terror. No way in hell was he letting her go. At that precise moment, the system detected an explosive surge of fury aimed squarely at him, causing his demonic energy to skyrocket to a staggering 19,000 points. Piers immediately connected the dots. The kingdom had figured out her disappearance and fingered him as the kidnapper. Whether she was the first princess or the 13th didn't matter a damn. In the eyes of the kingdom, she was still his hostage. Back at the royal palace, the king roared orders to obliterate the Demon King and rescue his precious daughter. Yet his advisors were caught in a web of confusion, still clueless about who the actual perpetrator was. Reconnaissance units were dispatched, begging the king for patience, but his fury erupted like a volcano. He ripped into them for being useless while his daughter was trapped in who knows what kind of hell, demanding immediate action. One wise advisor reminded the king of a recent scandal in a neighboring realm where a prince had been snatched by the Demon King of Lust. An incident that had united the entire world against that fiend, leading to his dramatic demise at the hands of valiant heroes. It was downright bizarre that another Demon King would dare to pull the same stunt after witnessing such a public spectacle. This realization sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. The king concluded, with a thunderous certainty, that a new Demon King had indeed emerged. Just then, a soldier burst into the chamber, breathless with urgency. He had news of teleportation magic detected. Heading north toward the Irgust Mountains, shockwaves rippled through the room, because those mountains were way up north, while their kingdom was nestled in the far south. What the hell was going on? High within the Demon King's tower, Gordon expressed his unease about the impending arrival of the Hilderin Kingdom's forces. But Piers, he was the epitome of calm confidence. He knew damn well their army would never reach him. The journey was fraught with peril and crossed a dozen different countries. He had meticulously calculated the colossal distance, the intricate political mess, and the natural barriers that would prevent any army from breezing through foreign lands. He was certain that none of those kingdoms would roll out the red carpet for Hilderin's soldiers. That left only one option: hiring a heroes' guild. Forced to accept reality, the king ordered contact with the Heroes Guild. Yet at the headquarters, fear spread the moment the Irgust Mountains were mentioned. The heroes refused to risk their lives in a place overrun by monstrous creatures, treating the idea the same way people react when someone asks them to fix live electrical wiring. They didn't even pretend to be brave. They simply decided the mission was suicide. As Piers had predicted, warriors who chased money and valued their own necks would never walk towards certain death. This was exactly why he had chosen that location for his base. Gordon found himself impressed by Piers' strategic thinking and his strange, unmatched knowledge of the world of Eren. It felt as if his master had lived here long before, even though the rules should have made that impossible. The feeling reminded Gordon of talking to someone who somehow always knows the traffic situation in a city they've never visited. Back at the castle, the king erupted again when he heard that not a single hero had stepped forward. He couldn't believe they dared to call themselves heroes while abandoning his daughter. One advisor tried to calm him, explaining that heroes in the Eren region cared only for profit and treated battles like people treat jobs on an online listing. If the pay wasn't high or the risk looked ridiculous, they simply skipped it. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Piers browsed the system's store. He saw options to buy skeletal soldiers for 10,000 points each, or weaken dimensional interference. But raising a proper army would demand huge amounts of time and resources. Sitting heavily on his throne, he admitted that the demonic energy he currently had was nowhere near enough to withstand a united hero army. The familiar fear from his previous life crept back in, the same way old anxieties returned during a long, quiet night. To overcome this limitation, he ordered Gordon to contact Draxen right away. He planned to sell demonic energy in exchange for human currency. Gordon was horrified. Demonic energy was the key to breaking racial limits, unlocking features and summoning monsters. Trading it for plain money felt as reckless as selling your house to buy lottery tickets. But Piers justified it with confidence, saying Draxen would pay a fortune. Without that gold, he wouldn't be able to face the heroes. There was one specific objective he needed the money for, and his gaze drifted toward the fortress city of Holton near the mountains. Disguised as a mercenary, Piers reached the city gates alone. The guards stopped him, mocking the idea of a single mercenary heading toward the Irgust Mountains and watching him with suspicion. Instead of arguing, Piers tossed them a gold coin. The moment it hit the ground, their attitude changed, the same way a waiter suddenly appears when you place a tip on the table. He told them they could split it, and they let him in at once. Inside the city, he realized he needed a guide to navigate the unfamiliar terrain. This led him to the Crimson Falcon Mercenary Guild, where members were drinking and relaxing. Someone suggested leaving soon, but the leader refused, calling the area perfect. Their plan was simple: let the soldiers fight the monsters while they collected the spoils afterward. In their minds, it was like waiting for a big sale instead of paying full price. Nothing could be more ideal. Their conversation shifted to rumors about a new demon king in the mountains. One of them brushed it off, saying it sounded like the kind of false information people spread online when they're bored. He argued that demon kings usually built their towers in places easy for heroes to reach, the same way game designers in an RPG place the boss where players won't get lost. They also mocked the story of the Hilderin princess being kidnapped, insisting no demon king would cross an entire continent just for that. Another member pointed out that the Heroes Guild backed out the moment the Irgust Mountains were mentioned. By the end, they agreed it was all a made-up tale meant to squeeze extra money from the kingdom. Their leader nodded, saying people lost their minds when gold was involved, the same way bidders go wild during an online flash sale. At that moment, Piers appeared right behind the leader. The mercenaries panicked, startled the way someone jumps when a friend suddenly appears behind them during a horror movie. They demanded to know who he was. Piers only smiled, noting how well informed they were and deciding they'd make decent guides. He ordered all but one to leave. Instead of listening, the mercenaries attacked. To them, he was an intruder who had walked into the wrong bar and wouldn't walk out again. A brutal fight erupted. Piers moved with ruthless skill, the kind that reminded them of overpowered anime villains who don't even break a sweat. One tried an ambush from behind, but Piers blocked it as casually as swatting a mosquito. When another swung a massive hammer at him, he caught it midair, shocking the attacker the way martial arts movie characters freeze when someone stops their strongest punch barehanded. Soon he was surrounded with crossbows aimed at him. Even then, he kept fighting. He grabbed one large mercenary and tossed him into the others like scattered bowling pins. The leader watched in terror, no longer seeing a man, but a monster straight out of a dark fantasy series. Outside the building, some of them muttered in despair, wondering why the battle still wasn't over, and why fatigue never touched them, as if they were stuck in a boss fight with an enemy who refused to follow the stamina rules. After everyone else collapsed, Piers approached the trembling leader, his eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. He promised the man he would live if he answered his questions, facing someone who felt like a final boss character standing over him. The leader agreed instantly and begged for mercy. Piers asked for the location of the slave market. Shaking, the leader guided him to a large structure behind a heavy iron gate. Piers noticed that the market dealt only in human slaves. The leader hesitated, unsure if this angered him. Piers asked if he had anything rarer, and tossed him a heavy bag of gold. Greed replaced fear in an instant. The leader shifted his tone like a shopkeeper, adjusting to a wealthy customer, and led Piers to another hidden area. As they walked, Piers couldn't help noticing how quickly the man recovered from watching his comrades die. It reminded him of characters in certain anime who cry one moment and negotiate the next. He realized humans and demons weren't so different. One chased money, the other chased energy. They reached the underground dungeons, where the leader finally showed Piers what he was looking for. Gordon's earlier question made sense now. Piers had come to buy slaves, not humans, but other races captured by mankind. He aimed to secure an elf known for strict loyalty, someone he could use as a spy to disrupt the heroes. Back in the kingdom, Hillen Cargill arrived. The king welcomed him with relief, and Hillen accepted the mission instantly, vowing to save the princess and take the Demon King's head with the confidence of a shonen hero beginning a new arc. Back at the slave market, the trader asked Piers what kind of slave he wanted. Piers pointed to a captured elf and casually said the mercenary with him would handle the payment. The mercenary burst out in shock, protesting like someone watching their friend order the most expensive dish on the menu using their wallet. But one cold glance from Piers shut him down immediately, forcing him to agree with stiff, nervous silence. Piers then told his companions to wait outside, saying he needed to check something alone. The merchant warned that the elf could become dangerous, the same way shopkeepers warn customers not to touch fragile items. But Piers assured him he'd pay for everything if anything went wrong. Piers examined the bound elf closely, seeing how humans had reduced a once-proud race to chain merchandise. The elf felt a spark of anger. He sensed the demonic aura around Piers and couldn't understand why someone like him would show interest. Piers offered him a chance to seek vengeance against mankind. The idea tempted the elf, but he made it clear he trusted demons no more than humans. Piers insisted he was different and proposed a deal. 50 years of loyalty in exchange for freedom and protection. He reminded the elf that for a long-lived race, 50 years was little more than a break between story arcs in an ancient fantasy saga. The elf rejected the offer, saying demons wanted to destroy the world tree, the very heart of elven belief. Trust was impossible. Piers didn't argue. He understood the concern. Knowing this entire situation felt as unnatural as a villain calling a timeout in the middle of a battle. He then swore an oath under the sacred code of demonkind that he would never harm the world tree and would honor his promise. For demons, this oath carried the same weight that the world tree carried for the elves. In return, he asked the elf, Granada of the Maple tribe, to swear 50 years of loyalty upon the world tree itself. Granada was disturbed by the demon's strange sincerity, but agreed on one condition. He wanted to meet the demon king who supposedly issued such an order. Piers revealed that he himself was the demon king. Granada mocked the claim instantly, pointing out that no demon king would attend a slave market in person. He added that demon kings weakened when far from their towers. With a smug tone, he said he would give 100 years of service instead of 50 if Piers could prove his identity. It was the kind of overconfident bet characters make right before realizing they've made a terrible mistake. In the next moment, the surroundings shifted. Granada now stood on the 5th level of Piers's tower. Piers reminded him of his promised 100 years. Realization hit Granada like a plot twist he never saw coming. He finally understood the truth. Though it didn't stop him from complaining, he immediately began criticizing the tower, treating it like a gamer, reviewing a broken base in a survival game. He commented on how empty it was, how the lower floors lacked anything useful, and how the 4th floor was overgrown and unguarded. He scoffed at the idea of such a place surviving a hero's assault, and claimed Piers wouldn't last even a year. With that, he declared he had no intention of serving in such a ruin. In response, Piers released a crushing wave of demonic pressure. The force hit Granada so hard it felt like a heavyweight drop in a fighting anime, the kind that pins characters to the ground without a single touch. Terror washed over him as he remembered the contract he had agreed to. The reality finally clicked. The tower stood in a region filled with catastrophic-level monsters, yet nothing dared to come near. It was like living next to a volcano that stayed quiet only because something even more terrifying lived at the center. Accepting this, Granada bowed and swore 100 years of loyalty in the name of the Great World Tree. Deep down, though, he expected his first task to be something dark, maybe even a chance to exact revenge on humans. Instead, Piers told him to cook. Granada froze, baffled. It felt like being prepared for a boss battle only to be handed a grocery list. As he chopped vegetables in the kitchen, confusion clouded his thoughts. Princess Erin soon joined him, cheerfully offering help like a friend, dropping into a co-op game without warning. The absurdity kept building. Before long, everyone gathered in the dining hall on the 5th floor, sitting before a full feast that looked nothing like the lair of a demon king. With caution, Granada asked about the girl, only to learn she was Princess Hilderin, the first princess of the kingdom. Shock hit him again. He assumed she'd been kidnapped. He questioned how such an empty tower could possibly withstand the hero who would arrive. Piers didn't bother explaining, and simply told him to sit and eat. He revealed the real reason he bought Granada, the elf's exceptional cooking. The princess kept smiling, while Granada sat there feeling like he'd walked into the wrong story. After the meal, Granada wondered if his duty was to guard the 4th floor against approaching heroes. Piers denied it immediately. If enemies reached that level, he explained, everything was already over because it meant they had crossed the Irgust Mountains. Then he revealed his true plan. Granada would infiltrate human society as a spy to spread disorder. But before that, Piers needed to test his abilities. Seeing an opening for advantage, Granada agreed. Piers explained the rules. He would fight with one hand and without using demonic power. If Granada won, 50 years would be removed from his contract. Hearing that, Granada accepted with the determination of a character given a rare power-up quest. Their battle began with sharp, precise movements. Piers noted that Granada's technique remained polished, unaffected by years of slavery. He even guessed that living on the mana-rich 4th floor had naturally strengthened the elf. Much like long exposure to high-level zones boosts players in RPGs, Granada unleashed powerful magic, revealing a strength far beyond most elves. He warned Piers not to underestimate him. magically summoned roots wrapped around Piers's leg, and Granada believed victory was finally within reach. It felt like the moment in an anime when the protagonist lands the finishing move. But a crushing presence hit him, an overwhelming reminder of who he was fighting. It stopped him cold. Piers assured him he would keep his promise and restrain his strength, but the pressure alone made it hard for Granada to breathe. Before he could react, the fight ended with a single strike. One decisive blow from Piers dropped him instantly, proving the gap between them was far greater than Granada had imagined. From there, the story shifted to the city of Horton Walk, home to the Crimson Falcon mercenary headquarters. This time, the mercenaries greeted Piers with warmth and respect, the way employees act when the strict boss who once scolded them returns with a smile. He told them he wanted to hire their services for a full year. Their captain agreed instantly and asked what the payment would be. One member muttered under his breath, annoyed at how eagerly their leader was bowing to the same man who had flattened them earlier, like someone grumbling about a friend, suddenly acting polite to the teacher who once scolded them. In answer, Piers dropped a heavy sack of gold onto the table. The sound alone changed the mood. The mercenaries snapped to attention, swearing loyalty with sudden enthusiasm. Their captain even considered quietly trading them out for a better team in the future. The way people think about switching to a newer, faster phone model after getting a taste of extra cash. Piers then told them to accept the man beside him as a new member, saying he would relay all orders from now on. The group hesitated until Granada stepped forward. When they saw his swollen, bruised face, their hesitation vanished. They sympathized immediately, patting his back and welcoming him like long-lost teammates, realizing he had suffered under Piers just as they had. Shared trauma bonded them faster than any introduction. While watching them, Piers noted that despite their rough appearance, they were skilled Urust veterans and not easy to replace. His thoughts shifted to the only hero who had answered Hildurin's call, Hillen Cargill, the hero famous for defeating the Demon King of Lust. Now that he held command over the mercenaries, Piers revealed their first mission: gather every piece of information related to Hillen Cargill, who was currently serving the Hildurin kingdom. The mercenaries straightened with determination, promising full obedience. With their assignment set, Piers left Horton Walk and headed back toward his tower, already planning the next step in his unfolding strategy like a strategist preparing the next episode's cliffhanger. After assigning the investigation of the hero to Granada, Piers decided it was finally time to strengthen himself. All the demonic energy points usually used to upgrade the tower or power up the Demon King had already been spent, leaving him with only one path forward. His thoughts turned to the Soul Flower, a rare mana crystal born from years of absorbing, untouched natural energy. Consuming one could grant immense power. He believed the Irst Mountains were the perfect place to search. The fierce mana storms and dangerous monsters had kept humans far away, allowing the land to stay untouched for ages. To him, the mountains felt like a hidden loot vault in an RPG, filled with treasures nobody else had the courage to touch. Even though soul flowers couldn't compare to pure demonic energy, they were still far better than having nothing. When he mentioned his plan, Gordon warned him that searching for one was like hunting a needle in a mountain-sized haystack, and the monsters would attack the moment they sensed weakness. Piers explained that monsters weren't the problem. The hard part would be finding the flowers without advanced mana detection. Their conversation stopped when they heard a light knock. Princess Armin peeked in with a small blue slime bouncing on her head like a living accessory. Both Piers and Gordon flinched at the sight. Armin ran off happily, playing with the elemental spirits drifting through the tower. She complained about being bored and reminded Piers of his promise to let her decorate the 4th floor. To his shock, she had already done it. The entire floor had transformed into something that looked more like her personal theme park than part of a Demon King's tower. He wondered how far she planned to go, amused and confused at the same time, like someone watching a friend redecorate their gaming room without warning. With a shy smile, she admitted she never thought she'd be allowed beyond the palace walls, but she was glad she came. Before she could say more, Piers picked her up, told her to hold on, and launched them into the sky. They shot upward at incredible speed. From above, she stared down in awe, seeing the world like a first-time traveler peeking out a plane window. The sunrise, the clouds, the open land, everything felt unreal to her. Her mind drifted back to her life in the palace, where every day felt like a copy-paste of the last. Training magic, studying history, repeating the same routines. She never expected anything different, but soaring above the Irst Mountains made her feel like she had stepped into someone else's adventure. Piers didn't bother with her reflections. He reminded her of the task. She asked him to use her name since they would be together often. He agreed, but warned her not to forget her responsibility. If she failed to find the soul flowers, he'd throw her into the underground prison. She quickly apologized and summoned her water and wind spirits to begin the search. Piers expected the process to take time, but he knew her method was far better than wandering blindly. Suddenly, Armin shouted that she had found something. He descended quickly and saw monsters gathered around a flower. Others had reached it first. Huge creatures emerged from the shadows. Piers explained they were a demonic race that had strayed from the demon realm. As their king, he ordered them to step aside and leave the flower alone. They refused. Their hatred toward demonkind burned so strongly that they declared they would kill him instead. Piers let out a cold laugh. Gordon had been right, and expecting logic from monsters was a waste of time. He burned them all without hesitation. The creatures fought back with wild desperation, trying to protect what they claimed as theirs. Their screams mixed with the roar of spreading flames. When one of them ordered the rest to go after the weakest and pointed at Armin, they rushed toward her in a frenzy. Piers cut them down with a single blast of fire. She stayed calm, remembering how even ogres could fall to coordinated attacks. Yet these beasts never even reached him. Then he released a massive surge of demonic energy that wiped out everything around them. When the smoke cleared, only Piers was left standing. Armin stared at him in open amazement, her eyes bright with excitement. He made a dry comment about how humans understand power only when they see it up close. That was when she spotted a ruby-colored spiritual flower buried in the snow, glowing with pure ice and water mana. He warned her not to get greedy. If she found more, he would reward her. She searched until she was exhausted and came up empty. Back at the tower, Piers considered her true identity as Hildurin's first princess. Once, saving her had felt like a mistake. Now she seemed far more useful than he expected. Gordon arrived with news from Granada. Hillen Cargill and 32 heroes had left the capital. But instead of heading toward the Irst Mountains, they were following the usual route, gathering allies, taking village quests, and leveling up. Gordon pushed several strategies forward, urging Piers to study them. Piers tossed them aside. Stunning him, he said he wouldn't place a single monster or barrier in their path. Weak challenges only created stronger heroes. He ordered Gordon to send word to Granada and have the mercenaries travel with the heroes to earn their trust. Gordon complained that his master never followed common sense and worried about how they would defend the tower in its current state. Piers assured him it would be reinforced. But with the help of a dwarf, Gordon immediately protested. Housing a dwarf beside a human and an elf would turn them into a joke. Piers ignored him and said the real prize wasn't the dwarf, but the advanced magic weapons only dwarves could forge. His next move was simple and ruthless. Heroes always expected weak monsters on the first floor of a demon king's tower. This time, they would walk into rows of cannons. Gordon understood at once. The ambush would be impossible for the heroes to predict. He shook his head, saying the plan broke every rule. Then he froze and shouted that there had been another kidnapping. The view shifted to the underground dwarf city of Wolfnet, where Lager Friedrich, the greatest blacksmith of his people, worked quietly at his forge, unaware that he had just become the Demon King's next target. The scene shifts to Volfner, the city of dwarves. Piers enters the city in disguise. He thinks that he fought countless dwarves before his regression, but this is his first time visiting their city in person. Piers enters a shop called Midnight Inn. After arriving there, he gives money to a man and states that he has come to commission a weapon. But he does not know where to go. He asks for the most outstanding blacksmith in the city. The man takes the money and laughs, saying that for a human, he knows how to talk business. Piers replies that he heard dwarves love money as much as heroes do. The man smiles and explains that he should head to the inside of the city. He says that a huge hole will be visible, and that if he gets on the lift, his ID will be checked, and he will be taken to his desired floor. He explains that it is a two-step security method that identifies intruders. He instructs Piers to head to the lowest floor and the deepest room, where he will find the city's best blacksmith, Lager Friedrich. Following those directions, Piers takes the same route and finally arrives in the domain of the best blacksmith. Upon seeing Lager, Piers thinks that his display of metallurgy makes it seem as if the monarch itself is dancing. He wonders if he truly is the best blacksmith. He then considers that if he could just quietly abduct him, things would be easier. Piers reaches out to place a hand on Lager's shoulder, but Lager senses his presence and forcefully raises his hammer. A powerful aura bursts forth, and Piers is overwhelmed. He is thrown backward by the intense energy. He realizes that Loger sensed that small bit of demonic energy and wonders if this dwarf could be something more than he expected. Loger charges at Piers with his hammer. Piers catches the hammer and declares that Loger is a hero. Loger loudly affirms that he is a hero and identifies himself as Loger Friedrich, the blacksmith who contains the power of heroes. He condemns Piers for daring to enter the land of the dwarves as a demon. Piers smirks and states that Loger will not leave this city alive. He comments that for all the talk, Loger is actually quite weak. He also clarifies that he is not just a demon, but a demon king. As he says this, Piers grabs Loger by the throat and Loger groans in pain. Hearing the noise, some soldiers rush over and call out to Loger, apologizing for their intrusion. They ask what that noise was just now. They then realize that Loger is gone. They shout that there is an intruder and that Loger has been abducted. They order all exits to be blocked and the facility to be searched thoroughly. Expressing disbelief at what has happened, the scene shows Piers having taken Loger upward and holding him in a high place. Piers warns him that he will kill him instantly if he makes a sound. Loger wonders why a demon king is there and assumes he has come for their princess. Piers responds that he is not interested in that. Loger insists that Piers is lying. Piers states that he heard that dwarven blacksmiths dig underground passages in case of emergency. Loger grits his teeth and tears pour from his eyes as he believes that this demon king must be there for the princess. He curses his fate, thinking that the only reason he had been living a quiet life until now was because he was too scared to fight demon kings. He laments that this had to happen to him. It is then shown that Loger is actually weak. Piers notes that it looks like he will not talk easily. Piers then proposes an alternative, stating that he will kidnap the princess and let Loger go, and he tells him to guide him. Loger reacts in shock, wondering what Piers is plotting. He thinks about the idea that a selfish hero sold out the princess to beg for his life. He realizes that if such a rumor were to spread, the other dwarves would look at him differently. He cries out in distress and curses Piers as a vile and evil creature. Loger thinks that everyone already knows he is weak, and if a rumor like that spread, they would definitely believe it. He panics at the thought of being tortured for the rest of his life. Piers presents him with a choice, asking if he will sell out the princess or come with him on his own feet. Piers internally knows that Loger is of course going to sell out the princess, but that Loger does not want to be tortured. Piers promises that if Loger helps him, he will guarantee his safety, and that he vows on the Demon King's standards. Loger thinks that the Demon King's standards are practically the faith all Demon Kings worship, and that there is no way a vow made to it would be broken. Realizing this, he comes to a decision. He suddenly smiles dramatically and agrees to head to the underground passage with the Demon King. Piers comments on his expression and says that it makes him sick. At Loger's workshop, his status is shown as absent. Knights are present and searching for him. At the same time, Princess of the Dwarven Kingdom, Liu's Werft, stands there wearing a strange dress. She cries and wonders where he went while making her weapon. One knight explains that they believe he has been kidnapped. Liu's orders him to shut his mouth and insists that Loger is a hero too, and that it makes no sense for a hero to be kidnapped. The knight explains that although he is a hero, he is also a blacksmith, and that is why he is not very good at fighting. Liu's once again orders him to be quiet and demands that they go and find the kidnapper and bring him to her immediately. The knight acknowledges her command. Liu's then darkly warns that if they do not find him, she will pull all of their heads out. The knight again acknowledges her as his highness. The scene shifts to Loger's secret passage. Loger leads Piers through a tiny tunnel. Loger is in front, and Piers is behind him. Piers is forced to look at Loger's large buttocks the whole time, and becomes annoyed by it. He complains about how long he has to keep watching them. Loger, frightened, says that it cannot be helped because the passage is too narrow. He states that they are almost there, and tells him to hold on. Piers orders him to move faster with his big buttocks. Loger finally exits the tunnel, and brings Piers in front of a castle. He declares that this is where his role ends. He says that he showed him the underground passage, and that Piers is on his own now, and then announces that he is out. Piers' expression darkens, and he calls out the nonsense in Loger's words. Loger, trembling, reminds him that he made a vow on the Demon King's standards, and that he said he would guarantee his safety if he helped him. Piers smirks and refers to that vow as garbage, stating that he does not give a damn about it. Loger starts crying and wonders what kind of Demon King he really is. Piers asks what he should do with him now. Loger, crying, thinks that he should have just sold out the princess. He lowers his head and says that he is actually quite useful, and that no one can match him in metallurgy. He promises that he can craft any weapon Piers wishes. Piers recognizes that Loger is a hero, and yet is willing to work for a demon king. Loger responds that there is nothing suspicious about that, telling him to use him however he wants. He even offers himself as a spy. He thinks that surviving is his first priority. Piers tells him that if he is willing to swear his allegiance to him, he will have his mercy. Loger expresses his gratitude and celebrates the great demon king. Inside his heart, however, he calls Piers a fool and thinks that there is no way he will actually obey him. He vows that the moment he gets out of there, Piers will be done for. He plans to form a pursuit team and promises that Piers will regret letting him go for the rest of his life, telling him to prepare himself. The scene then changes again. Piers takes Loger to Burge's tower on the 4th floor. Loger becomes completely stiff, shocked like a statue. Burge, scared, exclaims that the Demon King actually brought a dwarf. And not just any dwarf, but a hero dwarf. Piers orders silence. At that moment, Hillen contacts them and states that he has something to report, but then also reacts to the fact that a dwarf has been brought in. Piers orders him to give his report later. The princess then speaks to Loger and asks if he came to save her, adding that probably he did not. Loger, confused, asks Piers why he is there and reminds him that he said he would let him go. Piers states that he never said that. Loger insists that Piers clearly said he would have his mercy. Piers confirms that he does have his mercy and that he gets to live. Loger then wonders how he ended up there. Piers explains that he knocked him out and carried him there, and that it was the only natural course of action, since he did not know what Loger might do. Loger begins laughing in happiness. Piers smirks and wonders if he really is that happy to be his subordinate. Loger cries with joy and confirms that he is very happy. Piers comments that it is a great mindset and then assigns him his mission. Loger asks what it is. Piers grins and orders him to install a large number of cannons on the 1st floor in order to destroy the heroes. The scene began at the station, where preparations for the hero's journey were underway. A holographic communication link shimmered into existence, connecting the area to an external observer. Granada delivered his report with steady composure, explaining that rumors were spreading rapidly among the heroes. Intelligence suggested that the newly emerged Demon King commanded black flames, a belief that had driven the heroes to outfit themselves with fire-resistant equipment in anticipation of battle. Granada continued by revealing another circulating rumor. Many heroes believed the Demon King had refrained from unleashing demonic beasts out of fear. His prolonged silence was not seen as strategy, but as weakness. According to their interpretation, his restraint signaled hesitation rather than calculation. Deas listened without any visible response. His expression remained unreadable, his posture perfectly still. When he finally reacted, his judgment was cold and dismissive. From his perspective, the heroes had not lost their desire to kill. Whether they sought glory through combat or wealth through conquest was irrelevant. Their journey would yield nothing but loss, eventually stripping them even of the will to fight. Before ending the transmission, Deas issued a final directive. Granada was ordered to continue monitoring the heroes and report any changes immediately. The connection cut off soon after, leaving Deas alone with his thoughts. He reflected on the Demon King's tactics. By deliberately withholding demonic beasts, morale among the heroes was being slowly eroded. While their expectations were subtly twisted, more unsettling was the realization that this Demon King possessed an unusually deep understanding of human psychology. Deas wondered whether such a figure had ever existed before. The thought sent a rare chill through him, followed by a sense of relief. This Demon King was not his enemy. The scene shifted to Deas's tower, its interior cold and oppressive. There he issued orders to the dwarf blacksmith logger Friedrich. Fire cannons were to be installed on the 1st floor of the tower, but with one absolute restriction: mana stones were forbidden. The order sent Logger into immediate panic. Constructing such weapons without mana stones bordered on impossibility, and even if completed, their effectiveness against heroes would be severely limited. Deas shut down any resistance instantly. Finding a solution was declared to be the blacksmith's responsibility. Deas explained his reasoning. Heroes were favored by the dimension itself, granting them extraordinarily sharp perception of energy. Any trap powered by mana stones would be detected long before activation. That was precisely why mana stones could not be used. When Logger attempted to object again, Deas's demeanor darkened. A sphere of black magic formed calmly in his hand as he reminded the dwarf why he had been brought here. Logger was known as the greatest blacksmith. If he failed, replacements were plentiful. Terrified, Logger collapsed emotionally and hastily revealed another method. Deaz's reaction shifted instantly, a chilling satisfaction crossing his face, as he noted that such information should have been shared earlier. Logger explained that he had once created a device capable of completely erasing mana traces. Development had taken 3 years, and the finished prototype remained in his workshop in the dwarf kingdom of Wulfner. Suspicion hardened Deaz's expression. He demanded confirmation that this was not another desperate lie. Logger, shaking and in tears, swore his honesty. After a brief consideration, Deaz chose to believe him, though not without safeguards. A purple rune-etched collar was secured around Logger's neck. Deaz explained its function with disturbing casualness. The restraint could sever the wearer's head instantly with a single gesture, and also distorted perception, preventing others from clearly seeing Logger's face. Any attempt to remove it would be interpreted as escape, resulting in immediate death. Fully understanding his predicament, Logger collapsed and swore absolute obedience. After issuing further instructions, Deaz departed with Logger. Together, they traveled across multiple kingdoms in search of rare materials and compatible components. The journey lasted nearly a month, during which Deaz stored everything within his spatial pocket, preserving each item carefully. Their destination was Wulfner, the dwarf kingdom. Upon arrival, chaos had already taken hold. A massive boulder crashed down near a group of dwarves, shattering stone and scattering debris. At the center stood Princess Louise Verf, radiating fury. She had waited over a month and a half with no sign of Logger's capture. An elderly dwarf nervously attempted to explain that Logger had created countless underground tunnels over the years. Despite their efforts, it was likely he had already escaped. Louise dismissed the explanation instantly, concluding that Logger must have been kidnapped. In a violent outburst, she seized the old dwarf and issued a deadline: 2 weeks. Failure would result in total extermination. Orders were given to collapse every tunnel Logger had ever created, and the dwarves rushed to obey. As the soldiers dispersed, a hidden section of the wall behind Louise shifted silently. One of Logger's secret tunnels opened. She sensed the disturbance instantly and turned, though the interference mask prevented facial recognition. She recognized the tunnel itself. Only Logger could have known of it. Frozen in fear, Logger revealed himself unintentionally. Louise's rage exploded. Golden aura erupted violently around her as she accused him of fleeing to avoid forging her weapon. Logger's desperate attempts to explain only worsened her fury. Declaring absolute authority, she claimed ownership over him, condemning him to lifelong servitude. As she prepared to strike, a violent force detonated between them. Louise was hurled backward, crashing into the ground before regaining her stance with ease. Dust filled the chamber. When it cleared, Deaz stepped forward calmly and ordered Logger to retrieve the equipment immediately. Louise, unable to identify him due to interference, demanded his identity. Deaz introduced himself simply as the master of the blacksmith she had been abusing. Enraged, Louise launched herself into the air. Their fists collided at terrifying speed, shockwaves tearing through the chamber. The exchange resembled a clash between monsters rather than mortals. Louise caught one of Deaz's strikes midair with raw strength and countered with a brutal blow that sent him crashing into the ceiling. She turned her attention back to Logger, only for Deaz to reappear instantly. Slamming her into the ground, the battle intensified, debris flying as golden and violet energy collided relentlessly. Deaz recognized her immediately. Louise was the second daughter of Princess Ver, a being of exceptional strength, even before her growth had fully matured. Allowing her to develop further would make her a severe threat. Killing her now was the logical choice, but doing so would require releasing his full demonic power. In his weakened state, that risked exposing his identity as the Demon King. As their battle raged on, Logger frantically dismantled a massive mana phantom machine designed to erase and conceal mana traces. Deaz pressed him for progress and warned that his life depended on finishing within a minute. Louise's power surged further, 12 streams of golden aura erupting from her body. Deaz calculated how long he could continue without revealing his true strength, as their mana reserves drained at an alarming rate. Logger finally shouted that the dismantling was complete. The moment the machine shut down, mana across the chamber shifted violently. Seizing the opening, Deaz delivered a devastating kick to Louise's chest, smashing her into the ground in a massive explosion. Without hesitation, he opened his subspace pocket and ordered Logger to move. Louise rose from the dust, initially dismissive, until she realized Dea's. Logger and the machine were gone. Her soldiers arrived moments later. She mocked their slowness before ordering immediate pursuit. Then she stopped. The tunnels had all been collapsed. Grinding her teeth, Louise finally understood the truth. Logger had never intended to return. A cold smile spread across her face as wind swept through the ruined chamber. The situation had become far more entertaining than she had expected. With burning eyes and a twisted grin, she swore she would hunt him down personally, even if it meant scouring the entire continent, and when she found him, she would ensure he regretted everything. Within the first floor of Breeze J Tower, the Demon King Deas stood before a colossal magical apparatus. His posture was relaxed, yet his attention was absolute as he studied the structure rising before him. This device was essential to halting the hero's advance, regardless of the cost required to obtain it. Behind him, Princess Hilderin of the Hilderin Kingdom stared in disbelief at the sheer scale of the mechanism. Nearby, Logger, Deas's devoted subordinate, examined the reinforced framework that had been installed beside the device. He reported that the monopar's framework had been fully completed, and that installation had concluded without issue. Deas acknowledged the report with a brief nod and immediately ordered activation. Moments later, demonic energy surged outward from Deas's body. A violent purple aura flooded the entire floor, crushing the air with overwhelming pressure. After the immense effort required to bring the apparatus here, Deas expected nothing less than perfection. Logger, trembling under the demonic presence, confirmed that activation was already underway. As the enchantment finalized, the magical device roared to life. Mana exploded violently through the surroundings, and brilliant blue lightning wrapped itself around the tower, illuminating every corner. Princess Hilderin raised her arm to shield herself from the blinding radiance. At that instant, a translucent system interface appeared before Deas. The tower recognized the monofin and requested synchronization, requiring a massive point expenditure. Deas observed the notification with mild interest, realizing that the tower possessed more hidden functions than anticipated. Without hesitation, he reviewed his available resources and authorized synchronization. The process completed instantly. A final system update confirmed that the Mana Phantom had acknowledged Deas as its master. Its power source was completely converted, shifting from mana to pure demonic energy. Deas turned his attention to Logger. The subordinate reacted with visible excitement, insisting that he had not interfered in any way. Even so, he could barely contain his amazement. The fusion of the monofin with the tower, let alone the complete conversion of its energy source, surpassed anything previously believed possible. Logger recognized it as a breakthrough that even the original creator could never have predicted. Princess Hilderin stepped closer, her eyes shining as she gazed upon the awakened structure. Deas casually suggested that she test it herself. Delighted by the opportunity, she eagerly prepared a spell, forming complex magical symbols, as a massive sphere of multicolored magic took shape. Logger panicked instantly, horrified at the thought of unleashing such power after having just finished cleaning the tower. His pleas went ignored as Deas focused solely on observing the phenomenon. A spell of that magnitude should have been detectable far beyond the tower's walls. Deas moved toward the entrance and examined the outside world, only to find no trace of the magic's presence. Neither sight nor perception revealed anything beyond the tower. The effect was immediately clear. A tower synchronized with a monofin completely concealed internal magical activity. Curiosity stirred within Deas. He extended his demonic energy and attempted to manipulate the tower itself. In an instant, the entire structure vanished from existence. Moments later, with another gesture, it reappeared exactly as before. The realization struck him with quiet intensity. The tower could now be concealed or summoned at will, though controlling this power freely remained difficult for the moment. Deas understood its future value. A restrained smile formed as demonic light flickered in his eyes. Outside the inner chamber, Logger finally lost all restraint. His excitement spilled over as he begged for permission to examine the device further, nearly requesting permission to dismantle both the magical apparatus and the tower itself before hastily correcting his words. He declared the discovery unprecedented in all recorded history, his behavior bordering on obsession. Deas studied him carefully, noting how completely Logger had lost control. After brief consideration, permission was granted, on one condition: if Logger annihilated the heroes trapped on the first floor. He would be free to do as he wished afterward. Crimson energy surged around Lager as he immediately began chanting, fully immersing himself in what he now considered research. Deas then turned to Princess Hilderin and calmly proposed that she confront the heroes who had reached the fourth floor. She hesitated, momentarily taken aback by the request. Though her protest carried a playful tone, Deas reminded her that she was also a gifted spirit and had no intention of returning to her royal life. Even as he spoke, Deas recognized the weight of his decision. She remained an innocent princess, unfamiliar with the cruelty of the world, and asking her to oppose her own kind carried undeniable gravity. Hilderin fell silent, uncertainty flickering through her thoughts as she considered what powers she could even use. Before she could settle on an answer, Deas stopped her. Combat was unnecessary. All she needed to do was disrupt the heroes and openly reveal herself as their enemy. Success would be rewarded with another wish. She met his gaze, nodded slowly, and agreed on one condition. She wished to be introduced not as a princess, but as his subordinate. Deas accepted immediately. Her face lit up with unmistakable joy, her excitement barely contained. Even so, Deas instructed her to follow his orders precisely. Sometime later, Deas sat in silence, studying the system screen floating before him. The plan unfolded clearly in his mind. The first floor would reduce the heroes' numbers through overwhelming mana cannon fire. On the fourth floor, Princess Hilderin would serve as bait, drawing in survivors to be eliminated. Yet even this strategy was insufficient. With more than 200 heroes advancing, it would not eliminate even half of them. Only one option remained, strengthening himself further. His gaze shifted to a radiant treasure resting in his hand. Dense demonic energy coiled around it as it shimmered faintly. It was an icy water elemental spirit blossom, flawless in form. Spirit blossoms corrupted by demonic energy were exceptionally potent, even effective against demons themselves. Deas resolved to obtain more. Elsewhere, Princess Hilderin stood within a land of endless snow and biting cold. After several failed attempts, uncertainty lingered between them. Their earlier success now felt like nothing more than chance. Suddenly, a towering figure appeared before them. Deas reacted instantly, dark energy gathering around his raised arm. The interruption irritated him. The massive figure bowed deeply, identifying himself as Criodo of the Blue Forest tribe. He and his people sought the Demon King's protection. The gathered tribe fell to their knees, confessing that their ancestors were once demons who betrayed the demon realm. Bearing that original sin, they sought redemption through service. Deas regarded them coldly, recognizing their true intention. They sought power. His gaze sharpened as he noted that their affinity for demonic energy surpassed their reliance on spirit blossoms. At a silent command, a sealed box was opened. Inside rested a grim lotus encased in frost. Deas recognized it instantly, understanding why it had eluded him until now. He acknowledged their foresight and ability to negotiate, unusual traits for a tribe known for brute strength. After brief consideration, Deas accepted only one. A demonic sigil embedded itself into Criodo's body, as overwhelming power surged across the frozen land. His form twisted and transformed as he transcended. Becoming a true demon, Criodo knelt in absolute submission, offering his life and loyalty. The rest of the tribe followed suit. The scene shifted once more. At Algest Mountain Tower, power surged throughout the structure. Outside, an Orc legion assembled in disciplined ranks. On the first floor, Lager stood ready alongside 60 mono cannons. Deas reviewed the battlefield one final time. Every piece was positioned precisely as planned. The tower was secured. Princess Hilderin awaited her role on the fourth floor. Everything was ready. His dark eyes hardened as he focused on the approaching enemy. He would repay the humiliation of his previous life. Elsewhere, the heroes gazed up at the towering mountain before them. Algest Mountain loomed like a silent challenge as they advanced with a single purpose: to slay the Demon King. The heroes' journey preparation base stood as a magnificent city, a place where countless legends were said to begin. Within its grand central hall, a lavish banquet filled the space with light and sound. This celebration was held in honor of the heroes on the eve of their final march. Laughter echoed beneath towering ceilings as music flowed freely and glasses clinked together. Warriors, nobles, knights, mages, mercenaries, and merchants gathered together, indulging in the atmosphere of triumph and anticipation. Among the attendees, a young hero clad in polished armor stood beside the elderly Lord Castellan. The Lord regarded him warmly, noting that someone with such accomplishments carried himself with remarkable humility. The hero acknowledged the generosity of the host and expressed gratitude for the grand banquet prepared in their honor. The Lord, in turn, conveyed his pride in witnessing a journey that would surely be etched into history. After a brief lull, Lord Castellan proposed that the hero, Lord Hillen, address the gathered crowd. Hillen hesitated, visibly uncomfortable with standing at the center of attention. However, the Lord pressed on, pointing out that everyone present was waiting, and that such words would greatly raise morale before the march. With no graceful way to decline, Hillen reluctantly agreed. Seizing the opportunity, Lord Castellan announced to the entire hall that Hillen wished to speak. The hall gradually fell silent as all eyes turned toward him. Hillen stepped forward, collecting himself as calm replaced his hesitation. Facing the assembled crowd, he acknowledged every group present, from nobles and knights to mercenaries and merchants alike. He declared that their long expedition had finally reached its decisive moment. With confidence, he spoke of their march for justice, boasting that it had frightened the Demon King so thoroughly that not a single monster had dared obstruct their path. Laughter erupted throughout the hall, and confidence surged among the attendees. Yet Hillen tempered their enthusiasm, reminding them not to lower their guard. Every possible preparation, he assured them, had already been made. His resolve sharpened as he proclaimed that the following day would mark the end of the foolish Demon King. He raised his glass, righteous fervor blazing, as he invoked the kidnapping of the Hildren Kingdom's crown princess, Princess M, and declared it time for the world to remember who truly held power. The speech ended in a fiery declaration of dominance, and the hall exploded into thunderous cheers. Cries for justice rang out as the crowd followed Hillen's lead, raising their glasses and celebrating late into the night. Amid the chaos, Granada the elf observed everything from a distance. Calm and analytical, he noted that the size of the expedition had neither grown nor diminished. Exactly as the Demon King had predicted, Granada reflected on the speech and acknowledged that Hillen's charisma was the driving force behind the expedition's success. Hillen had secured funding from the guilds and maintained the loyalty of even the most unreliable mercenaries. Yet unease lingered within Granada. His memory returned to the last tower he had investigated, which had been entirely empty. That unsettling detail made him question whether the final confrontation would truly be as straightforward as it seemed. A dark, treacherous thought briefly surfaced within him, whether now would be the perfect moment to betray the heroes. Panic seized him instantly, and he chastised himself for even entertaining such an idea. He reminded himself that subjugating the Demon King would finally free him from his curse, a future that undeniably benefited him. Shaking off the thought, Granada decided to clear his mind. He stepped outside for fresh air, intending to send a report. Later that night, beneath the glow of a full moon, Granada stood alone on a high balcony. A faintly glowing device rested in his hand as he quietly communicated through it. From the other side, a calm report confirmed arrival at Horton Walk and stated that the climb would begin the following day. The response that followed was brief and firm. Granada was instructed not to make further contact once leaving Horton Walk. After a short pause, the voice returned, this time unmistakably belonging to the Demon King Deas. His tone carried a cold authority as he issued final warnings. Granada was told to beware of the snow during the climb, to remain vigilant at night, and to heed one final cryptic instruction. When the tower door opened, he was never to be near it. The connection ended abruptly. Granada stood frozen, unable to grasp the meaning of the warning. Confusion weighed heavily on his mind. Suddenly, a presence emerged behind him. Startled, Granada turned to find Hillen standing there. Hillen appeared relaxed and observant, quickly noticing Granada's tension. He offered him a drink, an elven fruit wine known for its calming warmth. Granada accepted, and as he drank, his nerves gradually settled. Hillen casually observed that Granada seemed troubled and questioned whether he truly believed they could succeed against the Demon King. The tone was light, almost teasing, but the question lingered heavily. Granada hesitated before responding. As he did, Hillen stared into his own cup, his reflection wavering. The cheerful expression he wore earlier slowly faded. Replaced by quiet honesty, he admitted uncertainty. Granada was caught off guard by the sudden candor. Hillen continued, explaining that although people trusted him and followed his lead, attacking a Demon King's tower had always been hell. It had never once been an easy victory. Attempting reassurance, Granada mentioned Hillen's past achievement of defeating the Demon King of Lust, implying that a newly emerged Demon King should not be as dangerous. As the words left his mouth, Granada realized something unsettling. Very little was actually known about how Hillen had killed the Demon King of Lust. With growing curiosity, he asked about that battle. Hillen avoided the subject. His expression shifted once more, returning to the familiar heroic facade. He credited his past victory to the brave comrades who had always stood at the front. Facing monsters head-on, turning to Granada, he placed a firm hand on his shoulder and reaffirmed his trust in him. With renewed confidence, Hillen declared that he would lead the coming battle and asked Granada to guard his flank. Granada nodded in agreement, satisfied. Hillen wrapped an arm around him and guided him back toward the banquet hall. The two walked side by side, Hillen leading his elven companion. His expression was calm and unreadable, concealing the true nature of their alliance. Later, alone with his thoughts, Hillen reflected on the conversation. A cynical smirk crossed his face as his gaze drifted to a ring set with a red gemstone. In that moment, the heroic mask vanished, revealing something far darker beneath. His true thoughts surfaced clearly as he silently placed his expectations upon Granada once again. And the following morning, the preparation base buzzed with activity. As the massive expedition finally departed, citizens lined the streets, cheering loudly. Words of encouragement filled the air as the heroes marched forward. Cries praising Lord Granada and Lord Wharton echoed throughout the city. At the head of the procession, Granada marched with calm focus, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Beside him, Hillen walked proudly, basking in the admiration of the crowd. The cheers swelled to a fever pitch as chants in Hillen's honor rang out. Soon, the city disappeared behind them, and the cheers faded into silence. The expedition entered the harsh Urist mountain range canyon. Endless snow-covered cliffs surrounded them, and a biting wind cut through the air. The massive force wound its way through the desolate landscape, the cold their constant companion. As they advanced deeper into the mountains, casual conversations began to emerge. Earlier worries slowly faded. Some remarked on the surprisingly mild weather, noting the clear sky and lack of snowfall. Confidence grew as others declared that reaching the tower would be easy at this pace. Laughter followed, with jokes about the absence of rumored disaster-class monsters, and claims that any such creatures were likely too frightened to appear with Hillen leading the expedition. That confidence shattered abruptly. A warrior felt a tap on his shoulder. When he pulled his hand back, it was coated in sticky purple slime. Confusion turned to horror as he turned around. Towering over them stood a massive ghoul. Panic erupted instantly as screams tore through the canyon. More ghouls poured in from all sides. Hillen's presence cut through the chaos as he raised his sword. His resolve unshaken, orders were issued swiftly, and the expedition was placed on full alert. The narrow canyon became a battlefield as knights shielded the mages and pushed forward, steel clashing against undead flesh, while magic lit up the frozen terrain. Suddenly, a new warning echoed through the ranks. A colossal skeletal frost giant emerged from the canyon wall, its massive body composed entirely of ice. Its appearance stunned everyone. Immediate retreat orders followed as Hillen declared his intent to face the monster alone. While the expedition fled the canyon, Hillen charged forward. Blue energy crashed against the frost giant, yet the creature remained unmoved. Undeterred, Hillen pressed the assault. The frost giant's crimson eyes glowed as it swung its massive arm downward. Hillen countered with a powerful upward slash, shattering the icy limb and sending shockwaves through the canyon. Without pause, he destroyed the creature's remaining arm and carved through its massive frame, overwhelming it with relentless force. Keeping the frost giant occupied, Hillen seized the perfect moment and unleashed a final flurry of devastating attacks. He then signaled the expedition to escape. The heroes did not hesitate. They surged past him, fleeing the canyon as explosions erupted behind them. Hillen continued to hold the frost giant at bay until the last moment. Enraged and denied its prey, the monster released a final furious roar before collapsing inward and self-destructing in a colossal explosion that shook the canyon. The survivors stumbled into a nearby snowy forest, collapsing from exhaustion and shock. Conversations quickly turned grim as they reflected on the horrors they had just endured. Yet despite everything, casualties were low. Many credited their survival to Hillen's overwhelming strength. Speculation spread rapidly. Rumors claimed that Hillen had absorbed the power of the Demon King of Lust, placing him on par with a Demon King himself. Confidence returned as faith in Hillen solidified. Granada listened in silence, thinking that perhaps Hillen truly could defeat the Demon King. That hope was short-lived. Ahead of them stood another threat, a tribe of massive blue-skinned orcs led by a towering chieftain with curved horns. There was no time to rest. Granada immediately recognized them as Frus, beings infused with demonic energy and servants of the Demon King. As the orc chieftain stepped forward, the ground beneath the heroes began to tremble. A deep rumble echoed through the mountains. The Demon King's warning resurfaced in Granada's mind. Terror spread across his face as understanding dawned. The snow began to shift. Cracks spread across the mountainside as ice groaned under its own weight. The sound of an avalanche filled the air. Panic consumed Granada as the disaster struck. A massive avalanche tore down the mountainside, burying the entire expedition in an instant. Snow and ice swallowed warriors, mages and heroes alike, dragging them into frozen chaos. Granada's final scream was crushed beneath the overwhelming weight. Far away, within his towering fortress, Demon King Dea sat calmly upon his throne. Holographic screens displayed the unfolding catastrophe. One by one, the images of the heroes vanished. A sinister smirk spread across his face as he watched their final moments. His plan had succeeded perfectly. Leaning back, eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction, Dea silently vowed that this time, none of them would escape. Meanwhile, the Demon King remained seated upon his throne. His body relaxed as his gaze rested on the massive screen before him. His posture showed no tension, and his expression betrayed nothing. When he began to speak, there was no emotion in his tone, only absolute certainty. The design he described had already been set in motion long before the heroes realized it. The first phase was the snow. Across the frozen battlefield, the land itself began to respond. Deep beneath the white expanse, hidden mechanisms awakened, activating a carefully prepared trap that targeted a specific zone with ruthless precision. In mere moments, the once stable terrain collapsed into chaos. Visibility dropped to nearly nothing as the storm swallowed the surroundings. The cold intensified until it became suffocating, and damage reports were rendered meaningless as the blizzard erased all sense of order. Everything within that frozen domain was consumed. Amid the roaring wind, Deas raised his voice. Forcing commands through the storm, he directed the heroes to establish a temporary camp and to search for those scattered by the earlier catastrophe. Every movement was slowed by the relentless snow and freezing gusts, turning even simple actions into exhausting struggles. As the calamity unfolded, the Demon King continued his explanation with the same calm detachment. The second command had already been issued. Under no circumstances were the heroes allowed to lower their guard during the night. What awaited them was not a conventional enemy, and even a moment of complacency would lead to death. When darkness settled, the situation deteriorated further. From within the forest's deep shadows, ghoul-type monsters emerged, their forms blending almost seamlessly with the snow. Massive forest beasts followed, each step shaking the ground beneath the hero's feet. One Knight froze as recognition struck him, realizing that Orcus-class monsters had appeared once again. Weapons were drawn instantly, and the heroes tightened their formation, bracing for yet another battle. From afar, Granada clenched his teeth. Frustration twisted his expression as he cursed the Demon King's recklessness. The situation was escalating far faster than expected, spiraling beyond the boundaries of calculated warfare. At last, the Demon King himself moved. A grim smile crept across his face as he advanced without hesitation. Avalanche by day, monsters by night. The cycle was merciless and endless, long before the heroes could fully understand the nature of the trap. Exhaustion would begin to gnaw at both body and mind. Their collapse was not a possibility, it was a certainty. 3 days passed in what felt like an unending nightmare. A constant struggle balanced precariously between survival and death. By the time the heroes reached the highest summit of the Argus Mountains, the toll was unmistakable. Their movements had slowed, their breathing was heavy, and their strength was visibly drained. One night, confusion spread when someone quietly noted that the Demon King's tower was nowhere to be seen. The realization rippled through the group like a shockwave, freezing them in disbelief. Deas raised his voice, disbelief sharp and unmistakable. A tower was supposed to stand at this summit, the place where the final confrontation would occur. Its absence defied all logic and deepened the unease spreading through the group. Suppressing his doubts, Deas ordered the formation to split up and search the surrounding area. Before the group could move, a commander stepped forward and stopped him. His stance was firm, his voice restrained but resolute. He declared the mission a failure, stating that continuing any further would only result in meaningless loss of life. From this point onward, survival had to take priority over victory. Deas froze, he turned slowly, shock written clearly across his face. The response he received was unwavering and tinged with apology, but it did not change. Grinding his teeth, Dea said nothing. 6 days after entering the Argus Mountains, the Demon King's tower was finally discovered. The moment it appeared, fury erupted among the heroes. One voice rose in rage, condemning the destruction of Mintania and questioning the madness that could justify such cruelty. When the tower gates were forced open, confidence surged back into the heroes' ranks. One knight laughed dismissively, declaring the first floor nothing more than a nest of weak enemies, and urging everyone to advance. That was when the Demon King spoke. His voice echoed coldly throughout the tower, reverberating from every direction at once. A chilling smile spread across his face as his mere presence became suffocating. Crimson light burned in his eyes as his true demonic form manifested, flooding the space with overwhelming pressure. This was the third command. The instant the tower doors opened, those who stepped inside were cast directly into hell. Magical cannon constructs materialized across the battlefield, rising into position and completely surrounding the heroes. Lightning tore violently through the air, deafening in its force. Dea stared ahead in disbelief as the scale of the threat revealed itself. Any remaining confidence shattered instantly. Brilliant blue energy surged across the battlefield as the mana cannons activated. The Demon King remained perfectly still, while condensed beams of power ripped through the heroes' ranks, cutting down knights in an instant. The assault was precise, merciless, and absolute. This was not merely an attack, it was the true beginning of despair. The cannon constructs advanced, overwhelming the front line. In the blink of an eye, beams descended from above, erasing everything in their path. Knights vanished without even a chance to cry out. Deas froze, shock constricting his chest as total annihilation unfolded before him. From within the control chamber, the Demon King observed calmly. This had only been the opening strike, a one-shot deployment designed to test endurance. Nothing more. When the destruction subsided, the Demon King studied the screen and allowed a faint smile to form. Despite everything, Deas was still standing. Below, Deas struggled to steady himself. He tightened his grip on his sword and forced his body upright, his breathing uneven. Confusion and rage churned violently within him. Nothing he had just witnessed aligned with logic, strategy, or any battle experience he possessed. Through the drifting smoke, Granada emerged. Though shaken, he was unharmed and reported that he had narrowly avoided the cannon strike. Relief flashed across Deas's face. Without hesitation, he proposed pushing onward to the next floor. Granada hesitated, carefully studying him. With only the two of them remaining, the situation was undeniably perilous. Deas responded firmly, reminding Granada of his past victory over the Demon King of Lust and the power he had absorbed from that battle. Compared to that ordeal, this enemy was not beyond reach. As long as they stood together, victory remained possible. After a brief silence, Granada agreed. Together they advanced. The second floor was empty, the third was the same. Slowly, anger crept into Deas's expression. The absence of enemies felt deeply unnatural. A tower of such magnitude should have been crawling with monsters. Yet there was nothing, no movement, no hostility, not even lingering mana. As Deas voiced his frustration, Granada remained silent, deep within. He sensed deliberate intent at work. If both floors were completely vacant, then the battlefield itself was being rearranged by a powerful hand. His thoughts inevitably turned toward Princess Erin. Even so, Deas did not lower his guard. He warned that danger could emerge at any moment, and continued forward with measured steps. Prepared for hidden traps, when they reached the fourth floor, both stopped in disbelief. Before them stretched a lush forest, vibrant with greenery, and arranged like a tranquil garden rather than a battlefield. Deas stared ahead, stunned by the impossible sight of a forest existing within a tower. Granada exhaled slowly and confirmed the truth. This was a curse, a spatial distortion created through advanced magic. Doubt crept into Deas's thoughts as he questioned whether they were even inside the Demon King's tower anymore. Before an answer came, Deas noticed a figure standing quietly ahead. His breath caught. A young woman stood there, clad in demonic attire radiating dark mana. Her appearance was delicate, almost fragile, yet deeply unsettling. She introduced herself as one of the 4 heavenly kings who served and guarded the Demon King, the Dark Spirit Master. Her demeanor was light, almost playful, as though the situation amused her. Deas had come to rescue a princess, yet she now stood before him as his enemy. Silence fell over the forest, then realization struck Deas like a blade. Recognition widened his eyes as despair flickered across Granada's face. The young woman denied the title of princess and asserted her identity as the Dark Spirit Master. With casual ease, she summoned Dark Spirit magic. Deya's shock deepened. That spell belonged to the highest tier of spirit arts, magic only Princess Erin could wield flawlessly. Everything connected: the nighttime ambushes, the hidden tower, the mana cannons, the empty floors. This was not chaos. It was strategy, and Princess Erin stood at its center. Disbelief curdled into bitterness as Deya's let out a hollow laugh. The warmth drained from his expression as the truth settled. The princess he had crossed hell to save had been protecting the Demon King all along. Rage surged violently within him. Before he could act, the space trembled. Dark purple energy erupted across the garden, crushing the ground beneath their feet. The Demon King appeared, his presence warping the air itself as demonic power poured outward. His cold gaze locked onto Deya's. The Demon King had finally revealed himself. Resentment ignited deep within Deya's as he realized how completely he had been ambushed. Power alone was no longer enough. He needed more. Turning sharply, Deya's demanded Granada's strength. The ground trembled as the Demon King's gaze shifted. Deya's stepped closer, insisting they combine their power. Granada hesitated, confusion flashing across his face as he questioned how such a fusion was possible. Before any explanation came, his body stiffened. Vitality began draining from his blood. Panic surged as the sensation intensified, his strength bleeding away with every heartbeat. Deya's expression hardened into something cold and detached. He assured Granada calmly that everything would be fine as long as he remained by his side. Granada collapsed. The Demon King immediately recognized it, the artifact. Deya's revealed the truth, a forbidden relic known as the Elf Eater, capable of converting an elf's boundless vitality directly into mana. Once activated, survival was impossible. Deya's pressed his foot against Granada's face, justifying the act as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. The Demon King watched silently. Then he smiled. The act was contemptible, disgraceful, and undeniably human. He noted calmly that removing the ring would instantly erase all borrowed strength. Deya's erupted into manic laughter, confident that even the Demon King of Lust had failed to take that ring from him. The Demon King answered with a single name: Gordon Derrick. In the next instant, Deya's expression twisted in shock as pain tore through his body and blood sprayed into the air. He had sensed nothing, no presence, no mana fluctuation, no warning. His hand fell limp. Standing behind him was Gordon Derrick, the Demon King's loyal servant. His blade was already lowered, the strike treated as a mere inconvenience. Before Deya's could recover, Gordon struck again, sending him crashing violently across the ground. Staring upward in disbelief, Deya's understood the threat at once. A high-ranking demon, even with the artifact's power, he had been utterly overwhelmed. Then pressure descended. The Demon King appeared behind him, gripping his shoulder with effortless strength. Crimson light burned in his eyes as a feint. Amused laugh escaped his lips. Escape was impossible. Deya's tried to move, but his body refused to respond. Only then did he realize the truth. Space itself had become a cage. Before him loomed a massive wolf-shaped presence, an ancient ruler whose authority had once dominated the entire continent. Understanding settled in Deya's eyes. There was nowhere left to flee. Dark energy gathered around the Demon King, swirling violently as the ground cracked beneath its weight. His voice carried chilling calm as he declared the moment had come to reveal what a true Demon King truly was. The rumbling grew louder. Deya's eyes widened in pure shock as oppressive energy spread across the battlefield, whispering destruction into every corner of the world. After Deya's landed a devastating strike, Hillen still lay on the ground, half dead but alive. Even after defeating him, Deya's acknowledged that Hillen's power and strength were impressive, because surviving such a powerful attack was no small feat. Deya's then coldly ordered Remek to bind Hillen's hands and throw him into prison. He also instructed that the other humans who had collapsed outside the door be locked up as well. Remek immediately accepted the command and moved to carry it out. Granada, on the other hand, was in terrible condition. He looked like a white skeleton and groaned in pain, claiming that he could see the afterlife. Deya's praised his efforts and mockingly rewarded him before using Spirit Blossom on him. In an instant, Granada was completely healed. He stood there in shock after recovering so suddenly. Deya's then used Spirit Blossom on the princess as well. Watching this, Granada wondered if Deya's had healed him in the same way. Soon after, the dwarf called out in excitement. Deya's acknowledged his hard work and granted him permission to dismantle the tower. The dwarf reacted with overwhelming joy and celebrated loudly, filled with gratitude toward the Demon King. With everything settled, Deas told everyone to return to their duties and restore and maintain the floors they had been assigned to. After giving his final instructions, he left the area. As things calmed down, Granada reflected on what he had witnessed. Even after such a fierce battle, the Demon King still looked completely fine, which only reinforced his reputation. To Granada, this was exactly what one would expect from a Demon King. The princess, however, appeared lost in thought. When Granada asked what was troubling her, she brushed it off, saying it was nothing. Still, she quietly noted that she felt the Demon King was tired. The scene then shifted to Deas himself. Away from everyone's eyes, he lay exhausted on the floor, gritting his teeth and admitting to himself how close the fight had been. He reminded himself that a Demon King could never afford to show weakness. He cursed at Hilan Karjal, acknowledging how dangerous that human truly was. Deas reflected on what it meant to face one of the 10 stars, the 10 strongest heroes on the continent. He recognized that while Hilan Karjal was among them, he was considered one of the weaker ones. Deas admitted that he had barely used any demonic energy points to strengthen himself in this life, partly because he did not have many resources to rely on. He knew that if Hilan Karjal had been in perfect condition, victory would not have been possible. Instead, his plan had worn Hilan down, provoked him, and pushed him into a state of panic. Because of everything that had happened, Hilan's field of view narrowed, and he exposed a clear opening. That single mistake allowed Deas's all-out strike to land successfully. For now, Deas considered it a perfect victory, even if it did not meet the usual standards of a Demon King. He realized that something unprecedented had occurred. He had successfully altered fate. This realization filled him with resolve. He believed he could change the future and finally take revenge on those heroes who had once destroyed him. As the tension faded from the battlefield, the scene transitioned to the Holton Walk Press Conference Hall. There, chaos had broken out as people argued loudly among themselves. Reporters accused the officials of spreading nonsense, mocking the claim that the heroes had given up simply because they could not find the tower. Investors were furious and demanded accountability, pressing to know who was responsible for the failure. Amid the uproar, one man insisted that the mission had not failed yet. He claimed that there was still hope. He emphasized that Sir Hilan Karjal and the great heroes had not given up. According to him, they were still searching for the Demon King's tower, and all they needed was a little more time. The king erupted in anger, cursing Hilan Karjal for his arrogance and failure. He raged that Hilan had talked big, yet delivered nothing. He declared that if Hilan failed to rescue his princess, he would be executed without mercy. The princess, burning with frustration, tried to speak about the hero's journey, but the king cut her off completely. He showed no interest in explanations and ordered that Lojer be found immediately. Around them, whispers spread among the people. Some claimed that Sir Hilan Karjal never returned. Others insisted that he was already dead. As these rumors spread, news of the new Demon King traveled rapidly across the entire continent. The story became twisted and exaggerated as it passed from place to place. The world fell into deep sorrow, and because of this widespread despair, Burge's demonic energy points accumulated at an alarming speed. The scene then shifted to the Heroes Guild headquarters, where a tense conference meeting was underway. The other heroes questioned Hero Wharton intensely, demanding to know whether there was even the slightest trace of falsehood in his report. Wharton swore on his name that everything he had said was the truth. An elder hero responded coldly, stating that the situation was extremely serious. However, since the identity of the new Demon King was still unknown, he insisted that caution was necessary. He reminded everyone that Hilan Karjal was one of the 10 stars and could not be defeated easily. The decision was made to wait 10 more days for any news of Hilan. If nothing was heard after that time, then all heroes across the continent, a total of 4,728, would launch a full-scale assault to eliminate the new Demon King. From there, the scene moved underground to Burge Tower Prison, where Hilan was being held captive. Deas arrived and observed him, noting that Hilan was awake and remarking on his exceptional recovery speed. Hilan immediately stated that if he was being kept alive, Deas must want something from him, and demanded that he get straight to the point. Deas responded with a smirk, pleased that Hilan was willing to talk. He made his offer clear and told Hilan to become his vassal. Hilan was stunned and completely caught off guard. He struggled to process what he had just heard. Deas then placed a bag filled with gold coins in front of him. He explained that a hero's journey cost an enormous amount of money, covering food for hundreds, security, lodging membership fees, armor, weapons, and even top-grade consumables. Normally, these expenses were paid through investments from merchant groups and nobles. He explained that when a demon king was defeated, heroes' lives were transformed. However, when they failed, they were buried under crushing debt. That was the fate of heroes who relied on investments. This time, all investments had been focused on a single individual, the captain of the hero party, Hillen Kargil himself. Hillen silently acknowledged the truth. Even if he escaped from this place, he would be branded a failed hero and forced to live in hiding for the rest of his life, endlessly hunted by debt. He wondered how Deas knew all of this. At that moment, Granada stepped forward and revealed that he was the one who told him. Hillen shouted Granada's name in rage, accusing him of betrayal. Granada fired back just as fiercely, calling Hillen a scammer and reminding him of what had been done to him. He declared that he had been on Deas's side from the very beginning. Deas then explained the real reason for Hillen's failure. He stated that it was because there had never been a demon king like him before. Hillen reflected bitterly, acknowledging that just as he had broken the old demon king's standards, Deas would soon adapt and find a way to clear the towers. Still, something about Deas's confidence unsettled him. Deas laughed and revealed Armani's orb in his hand. He pointed out that if one of the strongest heroes secretly interfered with human plans, the question became whether humanity could truly succeed. He explained that the orb was a magical tool used to monitor his subordinates. Once it entered the body, it would instantly attach itself to the brain. Deas would immediately know if Hillen harbored any hostility toward him, and with a single gesture, he could destroy his brain. He added that this was a crucial test. If the orb failed to adapt to Hillen's body, it would be taken as rejection. In that case, Deas would kill him without hesitation, noting that there were plenty of other heroes who could still be used. Then we shown the rest of Hillen's companions lay, scattered across the ground, half dead and groaning in pain as they struggled to move. Hillen desperately tried to stop Deas, insisting that a hero as strong as himself was immune to mind control magic. He believed that the moment the orb entered his body, it would disappear and that none of this was his fault. Granada responded with a grin, explaining that a hero could have their mental defenses dispelled by their own will. Deas reacted with a mocking smirk, making it clear that Hillen's own words had sealed his fate. Enraged, Hillen hurled insults at Deas, calling him a deranged elf and demanding to know if he felt any shame. He declared that Deas should be the one ashamed, accusing him of wasting a precious magical tool, and swore that he would never submit to a demon king. Ignoring his resistance, Deas coldly silenced him and forcibly made Hillen swallow the orb. Agonizing pain tore through Hillen's body as the magic took hold. Granada observed that Hillen was remarkably tenacious and questioned what would happen if he chose death instead. Deas showed no concern, calmly reasoning that a greedy human who treated his comrades as disposable tools for money would never sacrifice himself. A status window appeared, identifying Hillen Kargil. His equipment was listed as Armani's orb, and his status was now marked as a demon king's vassal. Hillen cursed bitterly as the transformation was completed. The scene then returned to the castle, where Remek addressed Deas. Although Hillen Kargil had been made a vassal, the massive debt of 100,000 gold meant his actions would be heavily restricted. Remek pointed out that the gold coins previously exchanged for demonic energy points amounted to barely 2,000 gold, a sum comparable to a small nation's annual budget, and questioned how more would be gathered. Deas responded with a confident smirk, stating that it was about time he received a message. When Remek expressed confusion, Deas clarified that he was referring to the annual gathering of demon kings, known as the Unison of Towers. In his thoughts, Deas reflected on his previous life, remembering how he had never attended such gatherings, because he found the idea of demon kings banding together repulsive. Yet now, he reasoned that the other demon kings had survived in Arryn for a long time, and must have accumulated vast amounts of gold and treasure. Remek reacted in shock, believing that Deas intended to exchange demonic energy points for money once again. In the past, Remek would have protested strongly, but after confronting the heroes directly, he understood the necessity of Deas's methods. He realized that if they had followed the old standards, they would never have been able to stop the heroes. With no other choice, he accepted this truth and resolved to believe in his demon king. At that moment, news arrived that an invitation to the Unison of Towers had been delivered. Remek immediately informed Deas. Deas responded with a sly smile, declaring that they would go. He resolved that they would swindle his senior demon kings. Remek acknowledged the order and pledged his obedience. The scene shifted to the Tower of Lies, specifically the demon king's room on the 13th floor. Deas entered with a faint grin, noting that he hoped he was not late for the appointment. He observed that everyone had gathered early and wondered if there had really been that much to discuss without him. Draxen Doldov, the Beast King of the Wolf Beastman race, stepped forward and welcomed Deas. Riene Sordine, the Demon Lord of the Cold race and a Frost Demon, remarked that Deas was the one everyone had been talking about. Ugur Belbeck, the Demon King of the Diamond River from the Titan race, stated that the fool who had insulted Jiangxiok had already been taken away. Jason Corkmundo, known as the Devil of Lies from an unknown tribe, also happily welcomed Deas. Deas responded with a smile, internally labeling them as pathetic. He commented on Harmony and questioned whether a demon king should feel ashamed. In his thoughts, he admitted that he knew this was the right path for Erin, yet something still lingered in his mind. Belbeck suddenly erupted in anger and cursed at Deas, demanding what a newcomer like him could possibly know about Erin. Deas calmly reflected that by scratching the surface just a little, it was easy to read people. He sensed that Belbeck was openly radiating murderous intent. Deas smirked and mockingly called him an idiot, stating that he thought he was the only one in charge there. Belbeck's rage intensified as he threatened to kill Deas if that was what he wanted. Deas replied casually, telling him to try if he could. As the two demon kings locked eyes, Jason intervened, reminding Belbeck that this place existed for Harmony and asking him not to ruin it. In Deas's mind, he noticed that the killing intent of both demon kings vanished instantly. He realized it was not magic, and wondered whether it was Jason's power or the power of the tower itself. Deas agreed to proceed. Jason thanked him for his cooperation. Deas considered whether this phenomenon was similar to Mana's ghost, then dismissed the thought as unfounded speculation. He reminded himself not to let his guard down. Jason announced the start of the Harmony at the top and declared that everyone could now speak freely. Deas remarked that it was not particularly impressive. Draxen, clearly angered, demanded to know from Berger Deas where Hillen Cargill was now. Deas fell silent and finally stated that Hillen Cargill was. Before he could finish, the scene smoothly transitioned to the adjutant's reception room within the Tower of Lies. There the aides of the Demon King of Beasts and the aides of the Devil of Lies stared coldly at Remek. One of them questioned whether Hillen Cargill was dead. Remek, visibly nervous, claimed that he did not know and explained that he had not even come to the top. He guessed that Hillen Cargill might be wandering around Mount Urgist and begged them not to question him further. Another beast scoffed, saying that it made no sense and that the tower should be visible if that were true. Remek responded that it was not their tower. A different beast remarked that perhaps the rumors were true and mentioned His Majesty the Demon King. Remek thought to himself that everything was indeed as the Demon King had said. Deas's earlier instructions echoed in his mind, reminding him that if other officers asked about Hillen Cargill, he was to say that he did not know and to act as a spy. He recalled Deas emphasizing that strict confidentiality was the top priority. Even so, Remek felt something was strange. He realized that the Demon King had not been wrong. Remek finally spoke, stating that the Demon King he served was. His thoughts cut off as he realized that despite knowing the truth clearly, his emotions overflowed. He suddenly shouted that the devil he served was a rebel, a fool who never listened to anyone. He complained that if left alone for even a moment, that devil would start doing bizarre things, and angrily declared that if things were going to be like this, then everything should just be done without him. As the outburst ended, Remek felt an unexpected sense of relief wash over him, and he could not understand why it felt so refreshing. Hearing Remek's outburst, the remaining beastmen responded with understanding. They expressed that they already knew and truly understood how things were. They complained that all demon lords were the same, and repeated the words about their own demon king again and again. As Remek heard this, tears poured from his eyes. In his heart, he realized that he had truly needed this small moment of comfort. The scene then transitioned back smoothly to the Tower of Lies. Belbeck looked at Deas with disbelief and questioned whether Deas seriously expected him to accept this situation as it was. Deas calmly affirmed that this was exactly the case. Belbeck exploded in anger, pointing out that Hillen Cargill had not even arrived yet, and accusing Deas of not even building the tower on top of the mountain. His frustration peaked as he shouted about the 82% completion, and demanded to know who Deas thought he was fooling. Deas responded casually, stating that wherever he built the tower was simply his own choice. Jason commented that the current situation was still the same, with warriors targeting the tower, and questioned why Berger Deas had left his own tower to come here. He mockingly referred to Deas as a demon king who had lost his tower, and mentioned the lessons learned at the Demon King's academy, calling him the best leader ever with clear irony. Deas dismissed the concern and stated that there was nothing to worry about because he would protect his own tower himself. In his thoughts, he admitted that something had been bothering him for a while, particularly the devil of lies. When Jason tried to continue speaking in that tone, Deas cut it off, signaling that there was no need to say anything more. Draxon, clearly irritated, asked Deas whether he truly believed that Grand Duke Alkin would ignore this situation. Deas replied that it did not matter what that old woman said. Draxon silently acknowledged that Deas was indeed extremely stubborn. Deas then asked Draxon if something was bothering him. Draxon replied briefly and suggested they move on. Deas reflected internally that even if he caught them, there would be no way to confirm anything. His doubts were resolved enough for now. He concluded that avoiding trouble was better than being caught, and reminded himself of their real purpose for coming there. The top priority was to collect 100,000 gold. After that, the conversation among the demon lords continued. Berger Deas appeared more active in the discussion than expected. As Deas observed, he realized that even among demon kings, there was a clear hierarchy. The demon king of lies stood firmly at the top tier. Deas carefully observed and gathered information, paying close attention to which demon king seemed desperate for magic points. While doing so, Renee suddenly cast a cold gaze toward Deas, leaving him momentarily confused. The scene then shifted to the balcony on the 13th floor of the Tower of Lies. Renee stood there alone. Deas approached her and asked what was going on. Renee explained that it was not a secretive matter. After hearing the rumors, she had simply wanted to speak with him privately. Deas was surprised that she wanted to talk specifically with him. Renee turned toward him and confirmed it. She stated that she agreed with some of his opinions. Deas was visibly shocked and wondered if Renee had ever said something like this in his previous life. Renee clarified that he should not misunderstand her. She explained that she did not hate orthodoxy the way he did, and that she believed in classical values. However, she also believed that flexibility was sometimes necessary, especially in Arryn, which was why she wanted to meet him. She added that compared to the others, at least he was someone she could communicate with. Deas shared his thoughts in response. Renee replied that it was not bad, and admitted that he seemed better than she had expected. Deas accepted the compliment with mild surprise. Renee then handed him an item, and explained that it was a personal communication port. She told him that if he ever needed advice, he could contact her at any time. She added that as long as he did not insult Jeongseok in front of his wife, she would tolerate him. She expressed her hope that someone who could communicate properly, like Deas, would not disappear anytime soon. Deas asked again why she did not simply talk to the devil of lies instead. Renee explained that his mind could not be read, and that while he was better than the other two, there were still limits. With that, Renee left the balcony. Left alone, Deas admitted to himself that he still could not fully trust her. Even so, Renee's sorting stood out in his mind as an unexpected and valuable gain. The scene shifts to another place at the same time, inside the Tower of Berge. On the first floor of Berger's tower, the princess arrives after baking cookies for Lodger. She happily presents the cookies to him and urges him to try them. Lodger is surprised to see snacks inside the Demon King's tower. The princess laughs softly and explains that the ingredients were bought by the Demon King himself. With the help of spirits, she attempted to bake them on her own. Lodger praises her as a genius spiritist and remarks that the atmosphere feels comfortable. The princess encourages him again, inviting him to taste the cookies. Lodger chuckles and decides to eat them with gratitude. Inside his mind, he reflects that the princess was raised without ever having to lift a finger, without even a single drop of water touching her hands. He assumes that a homemade cookie from someone like her might not be delicious, but he convinces himself to call it tasty anyway. The moment he takes a bite, his thoughts collapse. The flavor overwhelms him, and the taste causes his mana to sway violently. He realizes he has never tasted anything like these cookies before. To him, they taste like heaven itself. The princess watches him closely and asks about the taste. Lodger finds himself unable to pull away, completely stunned by what she has made. The princess explains that she mixed a small amount of sesame oil into the dough and shyly waits for his reaction. Relieved that it turned out well, Loger struggles to process why something like this feels so precious to him. He senses his mana draining and then suddenly surging again. The princess smiles and explains that this is a gift meant to build a friendship for the future. She mentions that after watching his face for a long time, he would surely buy it. Loger agrees with her thought but hesitates slightly. The princess then offers granada as well, giggling playfully. Loger reacts by saying the shock will be even greater than before. The princess grows more excited and wonders whether the Demon King would like it too. Loger acknowledges the idea as the moment settles. The scene then transitions smoothly to Deas, who finishes his conversation with Riene and heads back to rejoin the meeting. When he arrives, he realizes that everyone has already left. Deas notes that they are all gone. Jason confirms that the Harmony meeting of the tower has ended. Deas comments on how short it was. Jason, noticing his mood, offers him a cup of tea if he feels regret. Deas dismisses the idea of being sad. Jason calmly insists that Deas needs something badly as a human, and that thing is money. Deas is left shocked by the statement. In his thoughts, he wonders what Jason truly means and questions where such information could have come from. Jason made it clear that pretending was pointless. He stated that Draxon had already informed him of everything. The tension spiked in that moment, but Jason dismissed it, saying there was no need to waste time on unnecessary psychological warfare. He moved straight to the point and proposed the deal, involving demonic energy points in exchange for human money. Deas reacted cautiously, demanding to know Jason's true plan. In response, Jason let out a chuckle and revealed his intention. He explained that his plan was to stand on Deas's side. Aligning himself with Burge, he expressed hope that they would get along well in the future, reinforcing his willingness to cooperate. With that, the scene smoothly shifted to Burge Tower. Floor 1. The transition revealed large sacks filled with gold that Jason had sent as part of the deal. Deas instructed them to take 100,000 worth of gold and move it immediately. Hillen stood there in shock, realizing that Jason had actually delivered on his promise. Despite accepting the gold, Deas remained cautious. He warned everyone to be careful and ensure that the source of the funds could not be traced, making it clear that the deal, while successful, still carried serious risks. Deas carefully considered the situation, suspecting that Jason might be able to trace the flow of money. He realized that if Jason managed to follow his movements perfectly, the worst possible outcome would be ending up as that man's puppet. With Jason's true intentions still unclear, Deas knew he had no choice but to remain extremely cautious. Turning to those present, Deas explained that everyone who remained had already been turned into dark knights and dark magicians. He pointed out that the individual standing at the center was named Ammon, a member of the Golden Moon Mercantile Group, and stated that he had been aware of this fact at the time the contract was made. Hillen listened in silence as Deas continued. Deas then mentioned the Dark Knights and Dark Magicians of the Tower of Burge, and instructed that these individuals be used to manage the funds. He emphasized that they would follow orders faithfully without question. At the same time, the Dark Knights and Dark Magicians of the Tower of Burge, who had been forced into contracts by Deas, were filled with resentment. They thought bitterly about the humiliation of becoming subordinates of the Demon King and internally pleaded for Hillen to save them. Deas addressed the situation again, stating that it was not a total failure since everyone was still alive, and the debt could also be repaid. The thought arose that this might mean a return to hero activities in the near future. Hillen responded with a smirk, observing that the situation did not seem so bad after all. He suggested that they make it work as partners. Hearing this, the Dark Knights and Dark Magicians of the Tower of Burge were left completely shocked. Dea's expression darkened as he reacted to the word partners. In the next moment, he pressed the orb in his hand, activating the linked orb inside Hillen's brain. A surge of unbearable pain struck Hillen, forcing him to collapse to the ground. Deas coldly corrected him and made it clear that this was not a partnership. He declared that their relationship was one of slave and master. Watching this, the Dark Knights and Dark Magicians of the Tower of Burge felt a grim sense of satisfaction and thought that Hillen deserved it. Still writhing in pain, Hillen processed the words slave and master and weakly joked that he had not known Deas enjoyed such games. Deas responded without emotion, stating that he did not expect sincere loyalty and ordered everyone to move out. Hillen remained on the ground, still groaning from the lingering pain. As the scene continued, a princess appeared and handed Hillen a letter, asking him to deliver it to her sister, Elena. Hillen realized she was referring to Elena, the 13th princess of Hilduren, and acknowledged that such a task was not impossible. At the same time, he reflected bitterly on why she had sided with the Demon King, recognizing that this choice was the reason he himself had ended up in such a miserable state. The princess apologized, but explained that she had no intention of returning to the kingdom immediately. She expressed her trust that a hero like Hillen would understand her decision. Along with the hidden secrets of the royal family, Hillen silently thought about the secrets of the royal family of Hilduren. He recalled hearing rumors about them and admitted to himself that if those rumors were true, her actions were not entirely incomprehensible. In the end, Hillen agreed to the request and stated that he would deliver the letter to Elena. Later on, Pixel voiced his concern to Deas. He clarified that it was not a matter of distrusting the Demon King, but rather doubt about whether the hero would truly follow orders properly. Deas responded by explaining that Hillen Kargil was not a simple materialist who only sought money. He noted that, although it might not seem obvious at first glance, the vulgar greed typical of humans who only chase wealth was not present in Hillen. At the same time, Deas admitted that Hillen was not especially noble either. He concluded that Hillen Kargil did not seek honor, but popularity. Deas observed that Hillen was aggressive in everything he did because he wanted to stand out. He added that if Hillen controlled himself well using the Armani orb, there would be no better spy than him. Pixel reflected silently, realizing that Deas had studied humans to this extent. He felt that he could no longer remain idle. Deas then smirked and imagined the outcome. He stated that if a hero, acting as a subordinate of the Demon King, were to destroy human society from within, it would be a sight worth seeing. Pixel immediately agreed and affirmed his loyalty to the Demon King. At that moment, a knock echoed at the door, leaving both of them briefly confused. The scene then revealed the princess entering the room, carrying a plate of cookies. She offered them cookies in a calm and casual manner. Deas took the plate from her and commented that she had been coming in and out of the hall room whenever she pleased lately. He warned that if he disliked it, he would send her to the underground prison for an entire month. The princess responded confidently, insisting that he try them first. Deas looked at the cookies and remarked that they were nothing more than a simple human dessert. As Deas took a bite of the cookie, his expression changed instantly. He was visibly shocked by the taste and reacted to the unfamiliar flavor. The princess watched closely and thought to herself that he had reacted, wondering if he liked her cookies just like others did. A faint sweat appeared on Deas' face as he smirked and acknowledged it. He remarked that, for a human dessert, it was decent. The princess was stunned internally, realizing that he had withstood it. Deas then pointed out that medicinal herbs had been mixed into the cookie. He noted that the flavor was dangerous. The princess openly admitted it, saying she knew he would notice immediately. Deas connected her action to the reward he had previously given her, and concluded that she clearly wanted something specific in return. The princess chuckled and confirmed that this was indeed the case. Deas remained silent, his confusion obvious. The narration then shifted forward in time. After arriving at Molten Walk, they immediately departed for Hilduren through the teleport circle, and Granada restored discipline soon after. The scene moved to the Scarlet Hawk mercenaries' headquarters, where all of Granada's subordinates returned beaten and battered. Granada, burning with anger, questioned how they had all fled during the first avalanche and left their captain behind. He accused them of abandoning him over something they did not even bother to face. One mercenary, his face swollen and tearful, tried to explain. He insisted it was not like that and begged Granada to listen. He described Era Ergist as a place where even heroes had fallen and questioned how mid-rank mercenaries like them were supposed to endure it. He claimed they had no other choice if they wanted to survive. Granada responded with fury, beating the man as he shouted that survival did not justify abandoning their captain. Just then, someone called out to Granada, causing him to turn around. Standing there was a blonde-haired female knight. She introduced herself as Keed and declared that she was a hero. She explained that due to certain circumstances, she had been unable to join the hero's expedition from the beginning. Even so, she had come now to take advantage of the opportunity, despite being late, and asked to be allowed to join the hero's expedition. Granada reacted with confusion, questioning why a hero had come here. At the same time, some of Granada's members, already enjoying themselves with drinks, joked around. They pointed out that she was the one who had paid for their drinks while the captain was away and casually suggested having another drink as well. Granada silenced them by striking them again and ordering them to shut up. He then acknowledged Keed for paying for the drinks, but informed her that the hero's expedition was already over. Keed was left visibly shocked. Granada continued, explaining that Hillen Cargill and the others had already departed from Holton Walk. Keed reacted strongly, unable to accept it. She apologized for her boldness and begged Granada to tell her the story of his failures. Internally, Granada resolved that he would only speak of what the Demon King had permitted. The scene then transitioned to the two of them sitting together in a restaurant, where Granada began explaining everything that had happened. After listening, Keed handed him a few gold coins in disbelief. She realized that the Demon King's tower had not been at the top after all. With that understanding, she concluded there was no reason for her to remain there. She thanked Granada for dedicating his valuable time and stated that the gold was a gift from her. After saying this, she left. Granada's subordinates commented dismissively after she was gone, describing her as a novice hero who did not understand anything about the world. They added that it would be a relief if she were not betrayed at some point. Granada reacted angrily, threatening them and asking if they wanted to lose a hand. He then watched the knights as they left, silently observing everything that had unfolded. The scene shifted to Holton Walk, in a lonely alley. There Keed arrived and stated that it was time to go back, explaining that the princess's fiancé was waiting for her. The response came firmly, rejecting the idea of returning and declaring the intention to live as a hero instead. Granada quietly observed everything from his hiding place, driven purely by curiosity. He noticed the Buffy figures moving without making any sound as they walked. They wore a mask that interfered with recognizing their facial expressions. That hero was a princess. The kingdom's affairs were meant to be resolved on their own. As the moment continued, a knight suddenly stopped Granada by placing a sword against his throat. Granada began to sweat as nervousness took over him. The knight demanded to know Granada's identity and accused him of spying. The knight also pointed out that Granada was using suspicious magic. Panicking internally, Granada realized that the object he was using was a magical artifact given to him by the Demon King. He understood that if he were captured, they would discover that he was a subordinate of the Demon King. The knight's expression grew darker and more frightening as he concluded that Granada was a spy from another realm. With that judgment, the knight decided that Granada could not be allowed to live. Overwhelmed by fear, Granada thought of the Demon King. He realized he had chosen the wrong place. His mind raced as he struggled to decide his next move.